Chapter 1325. Boundless mana erupted, and Hyodo Issei looked like a primordial being that had just woken up. There was no end to the energy wave that erupted from his body, and even Dustless was forced to retreat. Hyodo Issei was burning with green light, and the scene was terrifying. Everything that got close to him was turned into dust. Ah, this is going to be fun. Dustless's lips curled up slightly, and then he sat down on the ground and looked like he was going to enjoy the show. How is this possible? That kid just said a few words, and this idiot exploded? What kind of freak is he? White Dragon Emperor Wally sensed the energy wave that was overflowing from Hyodo Issei's body. His tone was unstable, and his body was shaking. The energy wave that erupted from Hyodo Issei's body was even stronger than his current state. I heard that you have never been beaten up before. Today, I will let you experience what it feels like to be beaten up by someone. Stupid White Dragon Emperor. Dustless glanced at White Dragon Emperor Wally, and then raised his arm and shouted, Issei-kun, in order to not be castrated, in order to not have your eyes and limbs dug out, use all your power and defeat this jinx in one fell swoop, and build your own harem camp. When he mentioned the word harem, Hyodo Issei was as excited as if he was injected with chicken blood. He stomped his feet on the ground and shot into the sky like a cannonball. Boom! 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 Hyodo Issei was like a rocket, and his feet were emitting high-density energy waves as he shot into the sky. White Dragon Emperor is going to be unlucky this time. Dustless kept loosening his shoulders, and the smirk on his face became even more obvious. You, Riaz and the other girls looked at Dustless speechlessly, and then they looked at each other and did not know whether to laugh or cry. They did not know whether this Hyodo Issei was too naive or too stupid. Anyone could tell that Dustless's words were all made up to provoke Hyodo Issei. Bang! 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 At the same time, two figures, one red and one white, were fighting fiercely in the sky, and the result of the battle was quite clear. Hyodo Issei, who had unleashed his little universe, was as ferocious as if he was on drugs, and he grabbed White Dragon Emperor and beat him up. You want to castrate me and destroy my harem dreams? Hyodo Issei's grabbed White Dragon Emperor Wally's neck, and his eyes blazing, and he shouted, then, I'll beat you until you can't take care of yourself. The more Hyodo Issei spoke, the more excited he became. The Red Dragon Emperor's feedback was getting stronger and stronger. White Dragon Emperor Wally felt like he was being beaten up like a little kid. Boom! Boom! Issei's aura was still rising. He clenched his right fist and punched White Dragon Emperor Wally's head mercilessly. Crack! He didn't even have the time to spread his wings and absorb the attack. The divine armor that covered his head was destroyed by the ferocious Hyuga Issei. And Issei, Hitata Issei. You're really something. You managed to fool Hyodo Issei with just a few words. Riaz attacked from behind and hugged Dustless tightly from behind. The billowing snowball was also squashed and turned into an oval-shaped meat patty. Dustless's mind was stirred up, and he closed his eyes to enjoy it for a while. You bastard, you said you were willing, and now I'm in such a sorry state. What kind of magic potion did you feed him? How can a piece of trash have such powerful combat power? White Dragon Emperor Wally, who was spitting out blood, gritted his teeth and touched his mouth, which was already sunken in. He was shocked by Hyodo Issei's combat power. This is all your fault. Wally glared at Dustless with endless murderous intent. Dustless had made him suffer this time. White Dragon Emperor Wally's invincible legend was trampled on by a piece of trash. And the culprit was this young man in front of him who looked similar to him on the surface. Who the hell are you? Tell me your name. White Dragon Emperor Wally questioned, even ignoring Hyodo Issei who was beside him. I'm just a nameless junior. Dustless smiled and bowed slightly to introduce himself. My name is Dustless, please take care of me in the future. Hearing this, he frowned slightly. He was sure that he had heard this name before, but because he was too annoyed, he could not remember it. He's the one who killed your subordinate in one move, Wally. White Dragon Emperor's voice spread out, and it was filled with surprise. I see. No wonder I felt that you were familiar. It seems that beautiful monkey and Black Song were defeated by you. White Dragon Emperor Wally was full of fighting spirit. Compared to Hyodo Issei's moment of brilliance, he wanted to challenge the mysterious Dustless more. Get up and fight with me. White Dragon Emperor Wally said excitedly. His broken mech was repaired perfectly again. Let's forget about it. Hearing this, Wu Chen shook his head decisively. He glanced at White Dragon Emperor Wally with pity and said softly, "You're not even as good as the little brother that I created at the last minute. Don't you think that your idea is too funny and ridiculous to fight one-on-one with me?" Dustless mocked. He cared about the infinite dragon god Orpheus. As for White Dragon Emperor Wally, no matter when it started, Dustless never regarded him as an opponent. Are you looking down on me? White Dragon Emperor Wally clenched his fist angrily, and his tone was obviously low, filled with indescribable ominous feeling. I'm not looking down on you. Our starting line is not the same. You're too far away. Gently glancing at White Dragon Emperor Wally, Dustless turned around and left with the girls. Don't even think about leaving. White Dragon Emperor Wally did not give up. He flapped his wings and swept out like lightning. Chapter 13:26. A dense storm came from behind. Dustless suddenly felt as if he was locked on by the claws of an eagle and the eyes of an eagle, wanting to devour him. Stupid thing, do you really think you are invincible? Wu Chen stopped and turned his head to reveal half of his face. Wu Chen turned a deaf ear to White Dragon Emperor Wally, who was galloping toward him. He only gave a simple summary of the situation. What a self-righteous and arrogant young man. Little did he know that in this world where gods were everywhere, he was now just a very common existence, just like Dustless's former third brother, Uchiha Sasuke. Although he had high potential, he was now just a tiny grain of sand. Come here, don't even think about leaving. White Dragon Emperor's speed was extraordinary. His big hand covered with silver armor grabbed Dustless's head. Poochie. With a gentle grab, Dustless's head shattered and turned into bursts of photons. What's going on? White Dragon Emperor Wally felt incredible, and his tone was full of shock. This is one of my thousands of abilities, elemental transformation. Dustless calmly told him everything to satisfy White Dragon Emperor's curiosity. No matter what you understand, I have to tell you, with your strength, let alone defeating me, you can't even touch my body. You look down on me? White Dragon Emperor Wally asked in a hoarse voice. His tone was full of anger and anger. Whoosh. At the same time, he didn't believe it and attacked again, turning into a storm and rushing toward Dustless. Boom. A heavy punch fell, and Dustless's abdomen collapsed again. However, what made Wally depressed was that Dustless himself was not hurt at all, and there was always a faint smile on the corner of his mouth, silently mocking him for overestimating himself. Facing Dustless, White Dragon Emperor Wally had a strange feeling in his heart. This was the most tragic thing in the world. The enemy was right in front of you, but even if you exhausted all your means, you couldn't shake him at all. Not to mention fighting with the enemy, even touching his body was as difficult as ascending to the sky. Do you only know how to use despicable tricks? White Dragon Emperor Wally had nowhere to vent his anger. He could only lose control of his emotions and yell, "It seems that you are just a small character. You have failed to live up to my expectations of you." Helpless, he could only provoke Dustless verbally. Who asked him to be so heaven-defying? However, Dustless was unmoved. He gave him a look of pity and turned around to walk away. You forced me to do this. The White Dragon Emperor's sinister gaze circled around Rias and the others. A look of savagery flashed across his eyes. I heard that Rias Gimli is your fiancé. Hee, if I'm not wrong, she shouldn't have the ability to avoid physical attacks. After saying that, White Dragon Emperor Wally looked at Dustless with a confident smile. You, as expected. Dustless leisurely stopped as a cold killing intent appeared in his calm eyes. Don't try to anger me. The price is not something you can bear. Hee, White Dragon Emperor Wally smiled and said casually, I heard from my subordinates that you have the same goal as me. No, you have a goal that is even more resentful than me. You want to capture the real Red Dragon Emperor, the Great Red, as a means of transportation. I don't even have such a crazy idea. Hearing that, Dustless suddenly understood what White Dragon Emperor Wally was thinking. He said indifferently, if you can't do it, it doesn't mean that others can't do it. Or, you think that my idea is too ridiculous and want to test my strength? Wu Chen asked expressionlessly. He finally understood Wally's purpose. Suddenly, a person who was even more arrogant than him had appeared. Wally was probably unhappy and wanted to test him. That's right. I just want to see what kind of person you are. White Dragon Emperor Wally was full of battle intent. He was not afraid that Dustless would not agree to his condition. He continued, you can reject me, but I will attack your companions. After saying that, White Dragon Emperor Wally turned into a storm and swept over. He stared at the girls with a vicious gaze and finally, his gaze landed on Isha's head. He seemed to think that she was too young and did not have the strength. This way, he could better force Dustless to fight with him. I choose you. With a flap of his wings, White Dragon Emperor Wally's speed reached the limit. Under the black night sky, his silver armor was extremely eye-catching. Ah! Isha screamed in horror and could not help but take a step back with fear on her face. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At the same time, a black shadow quickly came up and blocked Isha's path like a wall. Huh, you fell for it. Seeing that, White Dragon Emperor Wally was overjoyed. He gathered a majestic force in his right arm and smashed it mercilessly at the black shadow. This time, White Dragon Emperor Wally was not worried that Dustless would escape. Once he used a move that ignored the attack to dodge, Isha who was behind him would definitely be severely injured. She might even die. Therefore, Wally judged that Dustless would take his punch. Bang bang bang. As expected, Dustless did not dodge in the end. Instead, he used his own flesh and blood to take the punch of White Dragon Emperor Wally. Boom boom boom. The deafening roar resounded through the dark night sky. Everyone looked at Dustless in shock. They saw White Dragon Emperor Wally's punch hit Dustless directly. However, it was as if nothing had happened to him. He stood there unscathed, unmoving, and unwavering. How is this possible? Nothing happened at all? Wally's surprised tone spread and he subconsciously retracted his fist. His right hand that hit Dustless felt a little pain as if he had hit a meteorite. Dustless did not react at all. Instead, his palm was sore. At the same time, Dustless's form also changed dramatically. His whole body turned into a dark monster. Under the moonlight, it reflected a cold light. He entered the state of armament hockey. Chapter 1327. White Dragon Emperor Wally was shocked, and his calm eyes rolled up. He didn't know why, facing Dustless in such a state, he suddenly regretted it. Specifically, he didn't know. In short, it was a simple word, regret. If I remember correctly, you should be 20 years old this year. Logically speaking, I shouldn't lower myself to your level, but you, this problem child, don't seem to appreciate it. You don't know what's good for you and want a yard after getting an inch. Wu Chen's eyes were filled with monstrous killing intent. He had experienced several worlds and was an out-and-out monster who was hundreds of years old. He didn't intend to bully him. However, this kid didn't know when to back down and asked for a beating. Don't you want to witness my strength? Now I've changed my mind. Open your dog eyes and see it clearly. As his voice fell, Dustless's body merged into the darkness, disappearing with a swoosh. Where did he go? White Dragon Emperor Wally quickly looked around. It was the first time he had seen such an abnormal movement speed, which coincided with the fleeting speed of light. Idiot, behind you. Mockery sounded behind him, and White Dragon Emperor Wally quickly turned his head and greeted him with a dark iron fist. Boom! The fist covered with armament hockey was invincible, and under the brutal and powerful attack, White Dragon Emperor Wally suddenly disappeared. Boom boom boom. On the wall 100 meters away, Wally was deeply trapped in it, and the artifact covering his face was broken again. Not only that, but his right face was still red and swollen. Wally. I have a bad feeling. That guy is not right. White Dragon Emperor Arubian's cautious voice suddenly came. Through a series of previous observations, he came to a terrible conclusion. This guy is incredibly strong. Maybe this time we really opened Pandora's box and released an incredible guy. I see. Wally stood up with difficulty. His handsome face was gloomy, and he said in a hoarse voice, "No wonder Orpheus wants to join forces with him. But I can't accept it." Staring at Dustless resolutely, Wally's eyes were as sharp as a knife, full of vigor. It's not shameful to lose, but I can't accept being defeated like this. At the very least, I have to use my full strength to fight him. Even if I lose, I'll be willing to accept it. The broken artifact healed again, and Varley returned to his previous state. Sigh, we're probably going to be in trouble together this time. White Dragon Emperor Arubian let out a long sigh. If Wally was beaten up, he would also be unlucky. Therefore, he could only do his best to help Wally. And as Wally said, it would be too cowardly if he threw away his armor and surrendered without even fighting. Especially when his nemesis, the Red Dragon Emperor, Deleg, was watching. Swish. Swish. With a flap of his wings, Wally, who had put on his artifact again, whizzed over. He clenched his fist and punched. What's the use of such a weak fist? Raising his eyelids, Dustless glanced at Wally, who was full of fighting spirit. He felt like he was bullying a child. Feeling bored, he gave up on fighting back and signaled Wally to attack. Bang! 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 A series of punches landed on Dustless. He was like a punching bag. He didn't fight back and just stood there motionless. Wally's punches landed on him, and there was only a boom 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 sound. Meanwhile, Dustless himself was unharmed. He just looked at the crazy Wally with pity. Boom boom boom. The punches were still raining down. Dustless just stood there motionless, allowing Wally to fight back. Gulp. This unprecedented scene shocked everyone. Whether it was Riaz, Tsang Na, or Hyodo Issei and his artifact, the Red Dragon Emperor, they were all deeply shocked. Dustless, who was being attacked, looked calm. The attacks that landed on his body were like continuous rain. He didn't feel anything at all. How is this possible? How can there be someone in this world who can take so many hits? The Red Dragon Emperor, Deleg, shouted in disbelief. He and the White Dragon Emperor were the two heavenly dragons. Their strength could be ranked in the top 10 in this world. Even if Wally couldn't unleash the full strength of the White Dragon Emperor, he shouldn't be so powerless. Dustless just stood there and let him hit him. He couldn't even move. There was no reaction at all. Ah! As if he was deeply affected, Wally suddenly roared at the sky. His tone was filled with endless anger. He then turned into a divine rainbow and flew into the sky. He released all the energy stored in his wings. His strength was always at its peak. Because Wally released too much energy, the originally dark night suddenly became extremely bright. Everyone smelled danger. There was a voice in their hearts that urged them to run. Wally uncharacteristically reached out his palm and clenched it into a fist. He shouted, "White Dragon Emperor's territory." Buzz buzz buzz, it was as if the end of the world had suddenly arrived. The void was distorting at a speed visible to the naked eye. Energy ripples floated out from Wally's hand. Everything that came into contact with it was reduced in size by half. Partner, retreat quickly. He's distorting this space. We might suffer as well. As the White Dragon Emperor's archenemy, Deleg knew all of his moves like the back of his hand. What? All of them will be reduced in size by half. Hearing that, Hyodo Issei instinctively shrunk his legs. Dustless's words earlier had already left a shadow in his heart. What's wrong with my thing being reduced by half? Hayato Issei thought angrily. Unknowingly, an earth-shattering energy wave exploded from his body. At the same time, a high-density energy wave also exploded from Dustless's body. Chapter 1328. After experiencing several worlds in succession, Dustless's strength had been tempered and reached the peak of perfection. Moreover, the current world was relatively low-end. Even if the deities were everywhere, and there were even people who had surpassed the deities, Dustless was not afraid at all. Boom! 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 The power that had accumulated in his body for hundreds of years exploded and dispersed. The Chariot King Academy disappeared in an instant. The boundless tide of energy spread out, and the vast and endless horizon suddenly seemed to have been blown up by waves, one after another, stretching out for dozens of kilometers. Even the stars and the moon in the sky were covered by the waves. The distorted space instantly calmed down. Dustless did not even make a move. He used his own aura to suppress the gradually shrinking dimension, and everything returned to normal. What kind of power is this? White Dragon Emperor Wally opened his mouth and loosened his clenched fists. He was desperate. Although he had the ability to absorb other people's energy, Wally did not dare to act rashly at this moment. If he acted rashly, he was afraid that his body would explode from the scattered energy waves. Also, if he was swept by the majestic energy waves, he would have a feeling of kneeling down and submitting. It was extremely oppressive and domineering. Whoosh! Whoosh! At the same time, a large number of photons floated from the sky and circled around White Dragon Emperor Wally's head. He looked up at the light that shrouded his head in a daze. He had a bad feeling. Just as he was about to retreat, a golden light beam fell from the sky and locked onto him. Light speed kick. White Dragon Emperor Wally did not even have time to react before he was suppressed by a powerful force. Boom! 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 He was mercilessly kicked down from a height of more than 10 meters. He was dizzy from the fall and almost fainted. Wally smashed a large deep hole in the ground. No, this guy is too scary. I only have a chance of winning if I enter the T-Rex mode. With this thought in mind, Wally was about to reveal his true appearance when he suddenly felt pain on his old face. Woo-woo! Wally roared with all his might, but he realized that he could not speak. A huge foot sealed his face. Dustless looked down at White Dragon Emperor Wally with a deadly expression. He had trampled on his dignity and pride until they were worthless. He had used his overwhelming strength to severely injure Wally. He had displayed strength beyond the knowledge of living creatures. I advised you not to provoke me before. Do you regret it now? Woo woo woo. Wally protested loudly, but his face and mouth were stepped on by Dustless, so he couldn't speak at all. He could only whimper, looking extremely aggrieved. You don't have a good memory. Dustless aimed at Wally's eyes, and the latter immediately felt the aura of death. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. With a flick of his finger, a flash of light whizzed out. Just as it was about to pierce through Wally, a sudden change occurred. Bang bang bang. When the light was about to pierce through Varley, a black shadow rushed over. At the critical moment, a huge magic fluctuation burst out and snatched Varley from Dustless' hands. Boom boom boom. The beam missed its target and created a large crater in the ground. Victory and defeat have already been decided. There's no need to kill him. The shadow who saved Wally chuckled. He tried to remain natural, but his nerves were tense, and he was always on guard against Dustless. If I didn't kill you, you would continue to hide, Mr. Governor of the Fallen Angel, Athasiel. Dustless raised his head and looked at the middle-aged man in front of him. He had a vague understanding of him. This guy discovered me long ago? Athasiel's eyes widened, then he smiled bitterly and said to himself, really, I thought this guy didn't discover me. It turns out that he deliberately killed me to force me out to save Wally. No wonder Corcobor's aura disappeared. He was probably killed by this guy. Athasiel guessed that the culprit must be Dustless. He had seen the battle with White Dragon Emperor clearly. The giant race mercilessly trampled on the dwarf race as easily as bullying the dwarf race. White Dragon Emperor Wally was like a clown, being played and beaten. Any attack was just asking for humiliation. Athasil was even sure that if Dustless wanted to, this battle could end in the blink of an eye. Let's stop here. After all, he's still a hot-blooded young man, just a kid who hasn't grown up. Athasil smiled and said in a sincere tone, indirectly admitting defeat for Wally. Although White Dragon Emperor Wally was unwilling, he still lowered his head. Just as Athasil said, he was just a kid who hasn't grown up in front of Dustless. Even if the opponent is an insensible kid, it will still be very troublesome to provoke me often. Just don't do it again. Dustless said indifferently. He knew that Athasil was pleading for mercy, so he didn't make it difficult for him. Sorry, I'll definitely pay you a visit when I'm free. Athasil heaved a sigh of relief. Dustless was planning to let bygones be bygones. If they really fought, he had no chance of winning. Goodbye. Dustless glanced at Athasil indifferently, then turned and left. Riaz and the other girls looked at each other and decisively followed. Who is that guy? He's so strong, he shouldn't be unknown. White Dragon Emperor Wally smashed the ground hard. His expression was filled with annoyance and unwillingness. Being beaten up by Dustless made him feel extremely uncomfortable. His whole body was burning up. God knows who he is, but fortunately, he's not our enemy. Wiping away the cold sweat on his forehead, Aesir smiled in relief. I keep having the feeling that going against that guy is the same as going against God. An invulnerable enemy was a nightmare. I'm going back to train harder. Let me know when the three-party meeting starts. I'll definitely surpass him. As soon as he finished speaking, White Dragon Emperor Wally disappeared without a trace. Chapter 1329. In the blink of an eye, it was the morning of the next day. After yesterday's battle, everyone was exhausted. Dustless was no exception. He had been tortured by the White Dragon Emperor Wally. Woo woo woo, Dustless yawned lazily. Suddenly, he realized that his body was heavy. He instinctively opened his tired eyes, and the scene that greeted him stunned him. Riaz, Aisha, and this girl with aqua blue hair. Genova? Dustless opened his eyes and was shocked to find that he was wrapped in 3 balls of flesh. Riaz was holding on to Dustless's left arm, while Aisha was holding on to his right arm. As for her legs, they were held tightly by Genova. Dustless could even feel her impressive cleavage. F***ck, what's going on? Dustless was petrified. He could understand Riaz and Aisha's actions, but why Genova? Dustless could not figure it out no matter how hard he scratched his head. After a while, Dustless's lips curled into a perverted smile. Since he could not figure it out, then he should not think about it. After all, he was not at a disadvantage, and the 3 beauties in front of him were already in his mouth. If he still stood there like an idiot, he would be letting down his heroic performance yesterday. Believing in the principle of not taking advantage of others, Dustless's hands began to move restlessly. Ah. You are my fiancé. Touching other women in front of me, have you considered my feelings? Dustless paused and turned his head. Riaz looked at him, her words filled with jealousy and jealousy. You are right, but shouldn't you fulfill your duty in advance? Dustless retracted his hands and pointed at the most important part of himself as a man. He said righteously, after yesterday's battle, I am very tired. He is even more tired. Riaz, fulfill your duty as his fiancé and reward him. Hearing that, Riaz's face turned as red as an apple. Definitely not. Riaz shook her head like a rattle drum. There was no room for compromise. Since you are not fulfilling your duty as his fiancé, then I have no need to follow your rules. I have been holding it in for a long time, and now I need to vent. After that, Dustless turned around and looked at Aisha's sleeping face. He waved his hands again. Just as he was about to reach Aisha, Riaz jumped out and interrupted him. No, I won't allow you to do that. Your first time must be mine. Riaz sat on Dustless's body and said resolutely with her hands on her hips. My first time? Hearing this, Wu Chen laughed involuntarily. How many times had he given Riaz? But that's of the mind's eyes of it, of the world, of course, I'm. But eyes of the eyes, eye of the eye. Of the eye of the eyes of the eyes. Riaz scratched her head, looking like she was having a headache. She did not expect to be troubled by something like this. Riaz. Why don't I remind you? Wu Chen stared at Riaz's enchanting thin lips and said meaningfully, a stupid woman only has one mouth, but a smart woman has 3 mouths. This is why those smart women can keep men captive. 3 mouths? Hearing that, Riaz was stunned. Looking at Dustless's mysterious face, her eyes lit up. Are you saying? Dustless smiled but did not say anything. He only pointed at his mouth. You, hearing that, Riaz's face turned red. She glared at Dustless angrily and asked, if I don't do that, what will you do? Do you even need to ask? Dustless rolled his eyes and said angrily, I'll definitely cheat on you. Staring fiercely at Wu Chen, Riaz had no choice but to compromise. She looked at him with a complicated gaze and then sighed deeply. She might be able to take a good-for-nothing man for herself, but for a man who was the best in all aspects, Riaz felt pressured to monopolize him. In the end, Riaz could only follow Dustless's arrangement and drink all of Dustless's things. When she woke up in the afternoon, Riaz's jaw was no longer sensitive enough to speak. Speaking of which, I can understand Riaz and Aisha sleeping with me, but you. During lunch, Dustless looked at Genova in confusion. It's no big deal. Junai said there's no place to sleep, so I can only squeeze with you guys, Genova said to Dustless calmly as she chewed on her drumstick. You're not a demon anyway. Then, Genova added, I don't mind, so why would you mind? Or are you afraid that I'll take advantage of you? You're right. Forget it. Facing Genova's answer and questioning, Dustless's mouth twitched. In the end, he could only wave his hand and let it go. Just as Genova said, if she did not mind, then he had no reason to mind. I'll be staying here from now on. Genova suddenly said in a matter-of-fact tone, Lord Michael has given his permission, and Rena will also be staying here temporarily. Other than that, there's another big problem. Can you not be so sure? This is not your home. Dustless retorted and looked at Junai. After all, this was her home. However, Junai was smiling. Clearly, she had passed the test. You guys didn't collude long ago, did you? Riaz also smiled mysteriously and appeared to be quite intimate. Dustless suddenly felt like he had been betrayed. Chapter 1330. Dustless did not know whether to laugh or cry at this. Aisha, Riaz, and Junai all looked natural. Needless to say, they had already guessed the news of Rena and Genova moving in. Silver was the only one who was in the dark. Is this Michael's arrangement? Dustless asked with a frown as he locked onto Genova, who did not care about his image at all. He felt that something was amiss. Call him Lord Michael. Genova said unhappily with a straight face, but still explained, it is indeed Lord Michael's idea. Our current strength is still lacking, so Lord Michael asked us to come out and train. It would be best if we could find a suitable powerhouse to be our master. As you know, Rena and I are not familiar with this place, so we have no choice but to stay at Junai's place temporarily. Plus, you are a barely decent master, so we decided to stay here. Genova said as if everything was normal. He did not seem to care about Dustless's darkened face. Barely decent master? F***ck, are you looking down on me? Dustless stared at Genova gloomily before finally looking at Riaz. Although this was Junai's house, Junai would not allow someone from the church to stay here without Riaz's permission. Oh right, it seems that the fallen angels, demons, and angels will be having a tripartite peace talk recently. Dustless's eyes sparkled. He had almost forgotten about this. In that case, it was normal for Riaz to accept it. It would show the demon's sincerity. Hey, you sold me out without my permission. If you're so powerful, why don't you go to heaven? Dustless grabbed Riaz's clothes and questioned her softly. Heaven? Isn't that simple? Riaz was confused. She immediately revealed her black demonic wings and was about to fly. Stop playing dumb. You can be the master. I'm not interested in such a thankless task. Dustless saw that Riaz was just brushing him off, so he decided to be direct. Is that so? Hearing that, Riaz was extremely calm and composed. She was not worried about Dustless rejecting her at all. Instead, she moved her impressive figure closer to Dustless's side. He pointed at her rosy lips and said, "It seems that you don't want to experience this morning's activity again." Gulp. Dustless choked on his sobs as his eyes shone with the light of a wolf. Even though it was his first time experiencing it, he could not find fault with Riaz's eloquence. No. Although I feel that it's not bad, it's too troublesome this time. I have to increase the stakes and change to another place. Suddenly thinking of something, Dustless changed his mind. No. Riaz's face was burning. Wu Chen was hinting that she should use her second mouth. She still felt that she was too young and too young. Idiot, didn't I tell you before? Women have 3 mouths. Dustless made his intentions clear and said, I need your third mouth. That place, I've never tried it before, Riaz. Hearing that, Riaz's face turned red like an apple. She looked up and saw Dustless's eyes burning with fire. The scorching light almost melted Riaz. Whatever, it's going to be yours in the end anyway. I'll agree to it this time. But you have to focus on being their master. This is an agreement between a demon and an angel. You can't go back on your word. Riaz finally backed down and agreed to Dustless's shameless request. No problem, I promise to make them the best of the best. Dustless nodded confidently. Even though it was his first time coming into contact with the unfamiliar profession of master, he still had the intention to teach Genova and Wisteria Rena well. At night, the cold wind swept across the land. Dustless and Riaz huddled in the small house. Just as they were about to settle Riaz's matter, there were always a few disruptors. Buzz buzz buzz, light flashed across the ground as magic surged, and 2 figures appeared. Idiot, put on your clothes. Riaz hurriedly ordered with a straight face. It's Gilifia and Mother. Them? Hearing this, Dustless's eyes flashed with a playful luster. His originally quickened hands and feet slowed down instantly. He thought happily in his heart, my 2 little lovers are here. We're all on the same side. There's no need to stand on ceremony. We're all on the same side. Dustless shamelessly laid down. Not only that, he even pulled Riaz's clothes off. The energy of chakra in his palm shattered all of Riaz's clothes. Are you out of your mind? Riaz screamed. Just as she was about to pounce on Dustless and bite him to death, Riaz's mother's voice suddenly came. Riaz, you, Venerana's words stopped abruptly. Her eyes widened as she stared at Dustless and Riaz, especially when Riaz was still lying on top of Dustless, as if she was going to push Dustless down. Miss Riaz, you are too. Gilifia quickly turned her back to Dustless and Riaz, her hands sweating. She did not expect Riaz and Dustless to be having sex. Mother, Gilifia, please let me explain, since we're all family, there's nothing to worry about. Riaz and I are going to take a bath. Do you two want to join us? Compared to Riaz, who was blushing and looking for a hole to crawl into, the thick-skinned Dustless was naturally much calmer. He calmly pulled Venerana and Gilifia to sit beside him. In the demon world, this kind of thing was actually very common. For example, men and women taking a bath together was almost universal, even if Dustless was just making it up. Chapter 1331. Hearing Dustless's explanation, Venelana and Gulifia let go of their resistance. Whether it was the demon realm, the real world where humans lived, or even the territory of the angels, it was common for men and women to bathe together. It was nothing to be surprised about. It was just a local custom. All right then. I've been a little tired lately, and I need to relax. Venelana was relieved as she winked at Dustless. After all, both of them had done it before. Bathing in the hot spring was no big deal. I know. Dustless chuckled and winked at Venelana. Well, How about, thinking of Dustless's eccentric personality, Gulifia decisively refused. However, before she could finish her sentence, Dustless stood out and exposed her, making Gulifia feel depressed and anxious. I say, Ms. Gulifia, you're not giving face to Laius and Auntie. Is it wrong for you to bathe in the hot spring with them? With a smirk in his eyes, Wu Chen said in a strange tone. Hearing that, Gulifia opened her mouth but found herself speechless. As a servant of the Gimli family, she had to follow orders from above unconditionally. Even though she was Sazax's wife, she was still working. As the future son-in-law of the Gimli family, she had to call Dustless young master. I understand, Ms. Laius, Lady Venelana. Gulifia glared at Dustless before bowing to Laius and Venelana. I'll go prepare the things you need. Please wait for a moment. Having said that, Gulifia left without a trace, always wearing a professional expression. Gulifia really doesn't know how to have fun. She always looks at me like I'm a pervert. Dustless complained in his mind. He couldn't help but feel jealous of Sazax. He thought that even though he had taken Gulifia's body, he couldn't take her heart. It was a pity. In the small space, steam filled the air, and a few figures could be seen in the smoke. This was a small hot spring in Zhu Nai's home. Dustless and the other three were squeezed together, sticking close to each other. Each of them only covered the important parts, so skin contact was unavoidable. Tisk, tsk. Zhu Nai is so smart. I must have built this small place. Wu Chen hummed a song with a pleasant expression. His behavior was lazy. He looked as comfortable and relaxed as if he was smoking a big cigarette. He moved left and right, which was better than a living immortal. He was sandwiched between Gulifia and Venelana. Speaking of which, why did Gulifia and Auntie come to the human world? Wu Chen asked curiously, abandoning the strange emotions in his heart. The meat was right in front of his mouth, and there was no need to fight for it. After all, they couldn't outrun Dustless, who could move at the speed of light. The three-way meeting between fallen angels, demons, and angels is about to begin. The meeting location this time is Chariot King Academy, where you are. Gulifia and I came here to tell you to pay attention to some details. Be careful during this period. Someone like Korkabor might come out to cause trouble. Oh, is that so? That's all? Dustless asked with a smile. He looked at Riaz's mother, Venelana, with a, you know what I mean, expression. Is this kid the reincarnation of a pervert? Venelana was also a wily old fox. She naturally knew what Dustless's gaze meant. Little bastard, listen to me. Don't make me look bad. When we find a suitable place, I'll feed you. Venelana pinched Dustless's arm and whispered in a voice that only the two of them could hear. Don't worry, my lovely mother-in-law. I'll cooperate with the demons. If anyone dares to cause trouble, I'll beat them up until their own mother can't recognize them. Dustless returned the favor with a, don't worry, leave it to me expression. But then again, this time, the big shots from all over the world are gathered. The two demon kings from the demon realm, the governor of the fallen angels, Asashel, and even the archangel Michael will be here. Gulifia said with a myriad of emotions. Her tone was filled with respect. These were all people who could shatter heaven and earth with a snap of their fingers. All of them were the overlords of their own superpowers. They're just a bunch of arrogant scum. Sazax's wife is mine, and so is his sister. Seraphal is mine too. Her sister, Tsang, is mine too. Even the fallen angel Asashel doesn't dare to challenge me. The Archangel Michael even gave his confidant to me as a disciple. He's most likely trying to rope me in. In the end, the most powerful person here is still me. Absolute power crushed everything. Because Dustless was powerful enough, everyone respected him and wanted to curry favor with him. Hence, there were endless benefits. That's not all. Only the demons, fallen angels, and archangels aren't complete. I remember there's also the Norse mythological system. Dustless went straight to the point. Venelana and Gulifia immediately looked at him in surprise. They did have such thoughts, but how did Dustless know? Could this kid really have the ability to see the future? With that thought, Venelana couldn't help but move closer to Dustless. They were soaking in a hot spring, so everyone wore very little. They only covered their important parts to prevent any leakage. Now, Riaz's mother, Venelana, suddenly moved closer and almost sat on Dustless's lap. "Mother, if you keep squeezing him, this kid will be overjoyed." Riaz pouted, her eyes full of resentment. Chapter 1332. Dustless's eyes flashed with interest. There was something different about Riaz when she was acting like a little girl, and it made Dustless's heart skip a beat. "Then I'll provoke you a little more." Dustless, who was bored, thought to himself. He had just dealt with the White Dragon Emperor Wally, and since he had nothing else to do, he might as well find some time to do something else. Dustless and Riaz's mother could read each other's mind, and they could see each other's teasing intentions from their faces. "Ouch, it hurts. I sprained my ankle." Venerana suddenly cried out in pain, and her face turned pale. "Sprained your ankle?" This unexpected turn of events stunned both Gulifia and Riaz. Gulifia rushed to Dustless's side and carefully picked up Venerana's foot. After looking at it carefully, she said worriedly, "Lady Venerana's foot is indeed swollen." "That's weird." Although Riaz did not say much, she was still suspicious and distrustful. Her stern gaze swept over Venelana and Dustless. She felt that something was wrong. "Spraining your ankle in the water?" This was the first time Riaz had heard of such a weird excuse. But Dustless's face was full of worry, and Venerana's face was pale from the pain. It did not look like an act. "It's just a small matter, and it'll be a big problem if it's delayed for too long. Lady Venerana is of noble status, and she can't get hurt. Is there any potion or medicine that can be used?" Gulifia looked at Riaz and Dustless for help, but they both shook their heads. "Ahem, Gulifia and I will go buy some. Riaz will stay here to take care of Lady Auntie." After clearing his throat, Dustless said righteously. He looked at Gulifia's delicate body, and his heart itched. It was very uncomfortable. "I object. I object." Riaz and Gulifia refuted Dustless's suggestion at the same time as if they had an agreement. "I'm more familiar with this town than you are. Leave it to me and Gulifia. You stay here and watch out for Lady Mother." Riaz's tone was cautious and warning. "All right then." Hearing that, Dustless, who was in high spirits, fell from the clouds into the ravine. Riaz could not help but laugh when she saw that. She skipped and left with Gulifia. "Hee hee, little girl, you want to fight with me? That's called advancing in order to retreat. With that little bit of skill of yours, if you want to exchange blows with me, it would be 3,000 years too early." After noticing that Riaz left, Dustless's face changed. Thud. 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 Wuchen walked in front of Venelana with an evil smile on his face. He grabbed her neck and squeezed her to the corner of the wall. When her breathing changed, he deliberately asked angrily, "Your daughter ruined my attempt to strike up a conversation. Tell me, how should I punish you? You can do whatever you want with me." Venelana's eyes were like silk, and her coquettish voice contained electricity. Dustless's body went limp with her. What a bewitching seductress. Dustless mumbled to himself. He was really afraid that he would not be able to suppress himself and would be devoured by this demon. The lifespan of a demon was almost infinite. Even though Venelana was already a grandmother, she was still able to turn the world upside down. Rather than saying that she was Rias Muqing, it would be more appropriate to say that she was her sister. Most importantly, Venelana was a mature poppy. In terms of being a woman, she was far more mature than the young Rias. Venelana's smile and movements were extremely moving. Her pure water eyes made people unable to shift their gazes away from her. TSK, you said that I can do anything to you, right? Dustless's wicked knife circled around Venelana's peerless body. She suddenly felt that those things in the past were really old. It was time to play some new tricks. I need to pee. This place is not suitable. Zhu Nai's nose is very sensitive. If I pee at will, he will definitely find me. Dustless pretended to be in a difficult position, but he was actually looking at Rias's mother with a perverted expression. That's troublesome. Hearing that, Venelana blinked. She naturally understood what he meant. She then took the initiative to stand in front of Dustless. She opened her mouth slightly, and an orchid fragrance came out of it. If you don't mind, just like before, please pee all over here. Hearing that, Dustless could not help but suspect that Rias's father was definitely not good in a certain aspect. Otherwise, Venelana would not be so crazy. She would not reject any of Dustless's requests. Thank you for your hospitality. I won't hold back then. Since Venelana took the initiative to come to him, Dustless naturally would not hold back. After aiming at her thin lips, he completely turned into a demon king at that moment. Since Rias and the others always called him the reincarnation of the sex god, Dustless would be a competent sex god this time. My cute mother-in-law, how does it taste? After a while, Dustless's face was full of naughty smiles. This was not the first time. He did not feel much when he did it. After all, living creatures were creatures of habit. Cough cough cough, Venelana looked at Dustless with a reproachful look. Her throat was very choked. Just as she was about to rest for a while, she was held down by Dustless and could not move. Then, Venelana suddenly felt that it was much heavier. Let's play a game of horse riding. My cute mother-in-law, please ride the horse. Dustless smiled naughtily. At the same time, he used all his strength to pat Venelana's butt. Instantly, a few deep red palm prints were left. It was so painful that her face changed slightly, but she endured it. Chapter 1333. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, a week had passed. At this moment, in the Supernatural Research Lab in the Chariot King Academy. Buzz buzz buzz, ripples of light rose from the ground, and a magic array appeared. A handsome man with long, red hair and clad in armor slowly emerged from the magic array. Lord Sazax. All the family members in the room bowed slightly, their faces full of respect. Really, why did you drag me into this kind of situation? Dustless lowered his head and groaned in protest. He did not have time to play games with Sazax here, especially with this kind of identity game. Dustless, whose status was not as high as Sazax, could only bow and scrape. It's not a big deal. I'll just take it back from your mother with interest later. Dustless thought happily. In the past few days, he had turned Venelana into a high-end saintess in front of people, and an extremely lewd slut in secret. Venelana would do anything Dustless asked for by Dustless. Of course, it was not without a price. During this period, Dustless gave Venelana a Logia devil fruit, which made her happy. Dustless fought with Dustless for a day and a night until she completely collapsed and fainted. Only then did Dustless stop. Buzz buzz buzz, immediately after, the magic circle that Sazax stepped out of flashed with a dazzling light, and a beautiful girl with a ponytail and fair skin rushed out. Seraphil? God has been kind to me, and I'm destined to enjoy the happiness of having multiple partners. The appearance of one of the demon lords, Leviathan, Seraphil, made Dustless's heart tremble. Her short, but curvy body made Dustless unable to stop himself. Humph. Just you wait. Sooner or later, I'll make you pay back double, for sure. As if noticing Dustless's attention, Seraphil suddenly turned her head and snorted coldly. She would not let go of the grudge of having her virginity forcibly taken by Dustless, absolutely not. This little girl is very vengeful. Dustless awkwardly rubbed his nose and tactfully retracted his gaze from Seraphil. Lias. His gaze passed through the crowd and finally landed on Riaz and Dustless beside her. He said with great satisfaction, "Well done, a fallen angel of Korkabor's level, as expected of my sister." Well, actually, after Sazak said that, Riaz immediately became bashful and embarrassed. The person who killed Kokbor was actually Dustless. Riaz's words caused an uproar among the crowd. Everyone stared at the skinny, slightly hunchbacked young man beside her, dumbfounded. If he's the one who killed Korkabor, I believe it. Leviathan Raffles, one of the demon kings, said in a cunning tone. What does this little girl mean? She must be up to something. She wouldn't help me for no reason. Not only was Dustless not happy, but he also began to think about Seraphil's intentions. The weasel is up to no good. Let's be on guard for now. Unable to think of anything, Dustless calmed down. It was just a demon king, nothing to worry about. At the same time, the sky outside underwent an unimaginable change. A large number of demons and other foreign species, including angels and fallen angels, gathered in the sky. It was not hard to see that this meeting was very serious. Buzz buzz buzz, in the supernatural department's research lab, flashes of light flashed again, and then two teams with completely opposite auras appeared. If one side was a crow immersed in darkness, the other side was a holy and bright divine bird, opposing each other. They belonged to the fallen angels and the angels respectively. The fallen angels were Athasiel and the white dragon emperor Wali. The other group of outsiders was the angels led by the archangel Michael. Although their auras were completely different, both sides had smiles on their faces. On the surface, they seemed to be very sincere. To choose such a place for a solemn meeting, I feel that the demons are not sincere. Athasiel casually chose a place to sit down, as friendly and easygoing as if he was in his own home. He did not treat Dustless as an outsider at all. His skin was so thick that even Dustless was impressed. The White Dragon Emperor, who was his follower and could barely be considered a bodyguard, crossed his arms in front of him and leaned against the wall silently. His gaze was fixed on Dustless and Huda Issei from time to time. These two had brought him shame, so he had to remember it and settle the score with them in the future. Your Excellency, I think before you accuse others, you should sit down and explain your actions. Not only did Korkabor steal the holy sword of our church, but he also almost started this war. Don't the fallen angels owe an explanation? Before Sazax could speak, Archangel Michael asked in a sharp and cunning tone. Upon hearing that, everyone's eyes were focused on Athashel's head, including the demon king Sazax and Seraph. What should be explained must be explained clearly. Actually, I also want to ask why the fallen angels sent the fallen angel Rina Lee to kill me. Dustless also took advantage of the chaos to stir up trouble. His eyes were like torches as he looked at Asa Shur. When he had just arrived, this guy was probably the one who had sent Lena to assassinate him. Now, Dustless naturally had to ask why. Chapter 1334. Dustless's sudden words ignited the atmosphere, and everyone looked at Athasher angrily. Hey. Don't be like this. You're making it sound like it's all my fault. That Keber guy has his own thoughts and ideas, and I can't tie him up like a dog. Anyway, he's dead now, so let's just leave it at that. Also, there's Rena Ray. Speaking of Rena Ray Amano Ray, Athasher felt a slight headache. He quietly sized up Dustless. Athasher knew that although this big bad star in front of him looked harmless, he was actually a ruthless tiger. He clearly saw the scene of Dustless violently beating up the White Dragon Emperor Wali that day. It was a completely one-sided situation. I had no choice at that time. Athasher, who really couldn't think of a good way to fool Dustless, could only talk about the real reason. At that time, I suspected that you were the bearer of a divine artifact, so I sent Rena Ray to spy on you for safety reasons. A powerful person with unclear motives might cause some unimaginable plans to happen, just like Ko Keber. It's never wrong to nip things in the bud, right? Perhaps reluctantly agreeing with Athasher's words, Dustless withdrew his stern gaze. This kid is so bold. Athasher is actually a little afraid of his aura. Seraphal's eyes darted around, seemingly curious about how Dustless had coerced Athasher. For the first time, she had doubts about this mysterious man who looked unfathomable. At the same time, Sazax, Archangel Michael, and Gulifia all saw that there was something fishy going on. Logically speaking, Dustless wouldn't even have a chance to interrupt in such an occasion. After all, he didn't have a powerful background. However, Athasher was serious and careful, and he was extremely honest about his intentions. He didn't even lie. How rare was that? Since when did Athasher, the governor of the fallen angels, become so principled? If that was the case, it could only mean one thing. Asher was afraid of Dustless's strength. He alone was enough to destroy an entire faction. Phew, let's end this matter here. It's just a small matter. There's no need to fuss over it. The essence of this three-party meeting is still peace and alliance. Sazax hurriedly changed the topic. They had mustered so many people to consider the issue of peace, not to discuss Dustless's strength and battle record. Among the fallen angels, only Korkabor was fond of fighting. But that guy is already dead. My greatest interest is to research divine artifacts. War and whatnot will only make people idle. I might even lose the time I spend researching divine artifacts. So, I'm determined to resist things like war. Asashel held his head with both hands and lazily looked at the scenery outside the window. His casual tone represented the opinion of the fallen angels. I agree. Archangel Michael said. His words were short, but they contained great determination. That's good. Hearing this, Sazax breathed a sigh of relief. His face was also filled with joy. Since no one has any objections, let's quickly conclude a peace treaty and end the unnecessary fighting between the fallen angels, and the demons. We're in too much of a hurry now. There's no need to be so anxious. The smile on Sazax's face froze. He followed the source of the voice and found Asashel with his eyes closed. After the battle with Korkabor, I've understood a lot of things. Even if the three of us conclude a peace treaty, it's useless. Some powerful people can completely ignore the existence of the treaty. Just like Korkabor, what's the difference between our treaty and a piece of scrap paper? It'll only leave a laughingstock. Asashel hit the nail on the head, causing Sazax and Archangel Michael to lower their heads in contemplation. This was a problem that could not be ignored. The truly powerful would not yield to others. It was wishful thinking to rely on a treaty. When a person had the power to destroy the world, who would obey the orders of others? Obviously, it was impossible. Therefore, I want to hear the opinions of the three of you, the Red Dragon Emperor, the White Dragon Emperor, and Lias Jimenez's fiancé. Asashel's words made Dustless and the other two the focus of attention, especially Dustless, whose strength was the most unfathomable. He was like a shining piece of gold. Everyone looked at him in unison, anticipating Dustless's answer. A boring peace treaty actually brought out so much nonsense. These guys are so bored. They might as well go home and have a good night's sleep. Dustless complained in his heart. He took in everyone's gazes and sighed inwardly. Do I really need to say such ridiculous things? Dustless scratched his head in annoyance. He really did not know how to answer this question. I have to say it. No one is an exception. Seraph said firmly. It was rare for her to oppose Dustless. Her eyes narrowed into crescents. She was very pleased to see Dustless's depressed expression. I don't have the great ambition to dominate the world and dominate the universe. Compared to that, I care more about which family's girl can hit on me. Then I'll build a very wide crystal palace of various races. Dustless's answer made everyone speechless. They felt like they were being brushed off perfunctorily. Dustless and I have the same dream. Hutu Issei immediately stood up and added. It was rare for him to stand in the same trench as Dustless, the most annoying handsome guy. After that, everyone looked at White Dragon Emperor Wally, hoping that he would not give the same answer as Dustless and Issei. Otherwise, the divine artifacts they were given would cry. Chapter 1335. Wu Chen naturally understood their disdain. He had the power to destroy the heavens and exterminate the earth, but he didn't have the dream of dominating the world. Instead, he only wanted to live in a drunken stupor. Perhaps in their eyes, Wu Chen was already beyond saving and had been possessed by a sex fiend. Even Riaz's brother, Sazax, also cast a disappointed look at Dustless, as if he expected better from him. He still hoped that Dustless would help him in the future, but now it seemed like it was just a pipe dream. Idiot, I'm thinking for you. If one day I really plan to dominate the world, you arrogant demon kings and gods will all be swept into the garbage dump of history as dust. Dustless curled his lips in disdain. With his strength, he could easily rule the world. Don't mind it, no matter what choice you make, I will support you. Riaz grabbed Dustless's little hand and put it on her chest, and said solemnly. Dustless felt a warm current flowing through his heart. He was silent, as if he was planning something. After a while, he smiled gently. Riaz, actually, I think it's not bad to push you to the position of ruling the world. However, Riaz did give Dustless a coquettish look and chuckled. Actually, I'm not good at scheming. It's too tiring to live like that. To be honest, I'm really afraid that you have the idea of unifying the world. Hearing this, Dustless shook his head. The world of One Piece, Naruto, and Shinigami, almost the entire planet was wiped out by him. At first, the feeling of ruling the world was not bad, but in the end, it gradually became boring. There was no joy in it at all. Living and scheming all day was really tiring. The feeling of being lonely at the top was sometimes very annoying. My dream, at this moment, White Dragon Emperor Wally suddenly spoke, attracting the attention of Dustless and Riaz. They looked at him at the same time, like a star in the eyes of millions of people. I just want to defeat 2 people. There is no other purpose other than the first time. White Dragon Emperor Wally said calmly, without any fluctuation in his tone. 2 people. It seems like he only wants to defeat Gardard, the Great Red. Since when did another one appear? Could it be the infinite dragon god, Orpheus? Or did he discover the potential of Hyodo Kazunari and want to defeat him? Dustless guessed, but he noticed that Riaz was looking at him with a half-smile. You seem to have forgotten to include yourself. You have given him too much of a shadow. If I were him, I would also want to defeat you at all costs, not to mention White Dragon Emperor Wally, who is arrogant and thinks that he is superior to others. Riaz rolled her eyes and said. White Dragon Emperor Wally's life had been smooth sailing, but he suddenly met Dustless, this malefic star. He was beaten to a pulp and lost all his prestige. Anyone would be traumatized, let alone someone like Wally. Buzz buzz buzz. Caw caw caw. Boom boom boom. At this moment, a strange tremor came from the heavens and earth. The Supernatural Research Department, where the 3 factions were having a meeting, suddenly trembled and fell into a strange atmosphere. This is, Sazax, Seraphil, Archangel Michael, and Athasiel all changed their expressions as a bad feeling flashed through their minds. Hee hee. Looks like it is about to begin. White Dragon Emperor Wally laughed in his mind as he looked at Dustless with a burning desire to fight. TSK, looks like we are being attacked. People nowadays are so bold. There is a demon king here. Dustless walked to the window and looked at the changes in the outside world. He broke the tense atmosphere with a teasing tone. The dimension outside was quickly twisting as if it was under some mysterious curse. The entire world was rippling and filled with a murderous aura. At the same time, countless small vortexes appeared in the void, and a swarm of enemies came out from them, almost surrounding the entire sky. This ability to control time and space. Could it be? Riaz and Sazaks looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. They seemed to have guessed who it was. Gasper. Both Riaz and Sazaks thought of this name. He was the only one who had this ability, but due to some special reasons, Riaz had to seal Gasper away. Who would have thought that someone she had forgotten would become a pawn for the enemy? Buzz buzz buzz, a large group of mages kept pouring out from the other side of the dimension like an endless swarm of ants. If we don't seal this dimension in time, we will be killed by the human wave tactic sooner or later, Sazak said solemnly. His pupils were filled with crimson light as destructive magic vibrated. No one dared to look him in the eye. Sazak was very clear about his personal and private grudges. He looked at Riaz with a stern gaze. Riaz, this is all you're doing. I am sorry, brother. This is all my fault. If I had let Gasper manage me, this wouldn't have happened. Riaz's expression was complicated as bitterness lingered in her heart. She did not feel good. She had chosen to escape when faced with setbacks and difficulties, and now she had only herself to blame for this. This is not a big problem. We just need to find Gasper. Dustless stretched and said as if it was as easy as eating and drinking. This was a simple answer, but everyone knew how difficult it was. It was easier said than done to find Riaz's minion, Gasper. It may sound simple, but doing it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Easy for you to say. Since you are so capable, do it yourself. White Dragon Emperor Wally, who was not on good terms with Dustless, said. He was wary of Dustless, but that did not mean he was afraid. He would not be afraid of anyone, not even the Great Red, the real Red Dragon Emperor, let alone Dustless. Chapter 1336. Staring at White Dragon Emperor Wally with interest, Dustless secretly despised him. In fact, the sudden attack this time was inextricably linked to him. His boring provocation was probably to force Dustless into a trap. Fine, I'll see what tricks you have up your sleeve. I'll play you to death. Facing White Dragon Emperor Wally's provocation, Dustless chose to fight back. He opened the window resolutely, and a majestic energy wave surged in his body as if he was about to fly out. Dustless, don't be fooled. This guy is doing it on purpose. Riaz stared at White Dragon Emperor Wally angrily, and her tone was filled with hostility. She said sharply, fallen angels are not good people either. Hearing that, Asashel frowned and looked at Riaz who was on top of her head. His lips moved. The first 2 times were indeed the responsibility of the fallen angels. To make up for my sins, I'm willing to help you this time. This kid still has a conscience. Dustless also stopped complaining about Amonoshima's sneak attack. He knew that although Asashel's mouth was sometimes vicious and his personality was a little perfunctory, sometimes he was unbelievably reliable. You want to deal with so many mages alone? Looking at the mages who covered the entire sky outside the window, Sadix frowned with a strange look in his eyes. No matter how many bugs there are, it will never change anything. Dustless said calmly. He did not care about the mages in the sky at all. Humph, the higher you stand, the worse you fall. I hope you don't fall to your death later. If you do, I won't save you. White Dragon Emperor Wally said in a strange tone, mocking Dustless. Hee. Hearing that, Dustless laughed and said in disdain, if there is someone in this world who can make me fall to my death, I'm sure that person is definitely not you. You. White Dragon Emperor Wally's mouth twitched, and he could only retract his anger. Anyway, the plan has begun. Wait for me to activate Tyrant Dragon mode. You'll see. Wally held back. He already knew about this, and even the mastermind behind it knew. The mastermind was the old Demon King's faction. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Dustless's appearance attracted a rain of bullets. The rays of light that filled the sky merged into a large area, transforming into a multicolored sky that blasted over. Petty tricks. Dustless let out a soft sigh as boundless energy fluctuations erupted from his body. His left eye twisted, and the black pupil was replaced by a purple one. Ripples spread out, and 9 black magatama hung on it. Wherever Dustless's eyes swept, the void would ripple, and the magicians would collapse and squat on the ground, trembling. What kind of eyes are those? The appearance of the Rinnegan shocked everyone. The moment the strange eyes appeared, Dustless's temperament also changed. A man with a cheeky smile had suddenly turned into a god who viewed all living things as grass. Perhaps it was as he said that day, seeming to have thought of something, Asashel said, "He's not fighting at all, he's just playing a boring game with Wally." Damn bastard, what the hell is going on with those eyes? Artifact? But why haven't I heard of those strange eyes before? White Dragon Emperor Wally roared unwillingly. Affected by Dustless's temperament, he also felt as humble as an ant. He could only look down at Dustless from this angle. There was no comparison between the two sides at all. Buzz buzz buzz, under everyone's surprised gaze, a large amount of high-density energy gathered in the sky. Dustless was like a volcanic crater that was about to erupt. His body constantly emitted energy fluctuations, and ripples visible to the naked eye spurted out from his body, crushing the surrounding sky. The magicians who were unlucky enough to touch them were crushed into pieces, and their whole body turned into a pool of mud. Super Shinra Tensei. Along with Dustless's voice falling, a wisp of shocking energy fluctuation erupted from his body and instantly swept through the heavens and the earth. Boom boom boom. The sky within a radius of tens of kilometers was all detonated by Dustless, instantly killing all living things within the range of Super Shinra Tensei. The sky that was originally occupied by the magicians was instantly restored. All of them were eradicated in one move. Gulp. The whole world was silent, and only the sound of sobbing could be heard. Everyone ran to the window and stared dumbfoundedly at the clear sky. Everyone's mouth was wide open. How is it possible? So many of them were wiped out in one go? Even I felt the threat of death from that rampaging energy wave just now. I'm sure that if someone wanted to kill us, we would have disappeared along with this school. No, this town. What a terrifying attack, so powerful. Who the hell is this guy? The fallen angels, demons, and angels were all in an uproar. They pointed at Dustless, who was floating in the sky with 2 different expressions of fear and panic on their faces. Can he really wipe them out in one move? White Dragon Emperor Wally was dumbfounded when he saw this, and his breathing became heavy. He thought that Dustless was just trying to impress the crowd, but he did not expect that he could really do it. Moreover, it was done in an insignificant instant. Wally could not help but ask himself. He could not even do such an exaggerated attack. Wu Chen's strength was beyond his understanding. Especially looking at his current expression, which was as calm as the wind and clouds, it was obvious that this was not his full strength. In the face of thousands of black shadows, Dustless's thin figure was particularly eye-catching, and he became the center of attention. Chapter 1337. All in all, everyone present had a clear understanding of Dustless. It shouldn't be a problem for him to surpass me. Looks like destroying Ria's and Phoenix's marriage and betrothing her to Dustless was the right choice. Demon King Sazax let out a hearty smile. He was quite happy with his brilliant decision. Of course, if he had wanted to see the changes in his wife, Gulifia, he might have been unhappy and put on a constipated expression. How is this guy so powerful? Gulifia's delicate face was burning. Looking at the majestic young man in the sky who seemed to be able to kill anything in his way, a strange feeling spread in her heart. After all, she had a special relationship with Dustless. They had even had sex before. Gulp. Zhu Nai and Riaz stood side by side, looking up at Dustless, who was going on a killing spree. Both of them had their own ulterior motives. Zhu Nai's eyes were filled with faint starlight. Since ancient times, beauties loved heroes. That was an unchanging law. Riaz, lend me Dustless for a few days. Zhu Nai stroked Ria's hair and said with a dazed expression. Lend him to you? You want to have him, don't you? I know you too well, Zhu Nai. Don't even think about it. Riaz put her hands on her hips and rejected Zhu Nai's harsh request. Humph, you arrogant brat. Demon King Seraphil snorted. At the same time, a strange feeling arose in her heart. Her delicate and perfect face had a complicated expression. After all, she and Gulifia had been forced to have sex by Dustless before. Maybe it's not a bad idea to have him as a backer. Life was like rape. Since there was no way to resist, one could only enjoy it silently. As a demon king, Seraphil naturally understood such a simple logic. All in all, everyone had their own thoughts at the moment. Even Archangel Michael had a faint smile on his face. He had sent 2 of his subordinates, Genova and Wisteria Rena, to Dustless. In the future, they could always have pillow talk. At this moment, Dustless naturally did not understand their thoughts. He was focused on the dense black vortex in front of him. It should be there. The observation hockey spread out, and Dustless keenly felt that one of them was unusual. His body glowed with faint photons and turned into a flash of light. In a mysterious unknown space, a young girl wearing a gothic lowly dress sat in the air, swinging her legs in boredom. Her jade-like hand was holding her chin, and her eyes were dull and confused. She looked very bored. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. In the dark space, a large amount of light lingered, and in an instant, it was incomparably bright. The girl also turned her head from her daze, and a satisfied smile appeared on her face. Brat, your strength is not bad. I only released a little of my power, and you were able to discover my existence. Your strength is not bad, and I am very satisfied. Therefore, I said that you are not inferior to me. The adorable girl said seriously. Buzz buzz buzz, in the dark space, a large amount of light condensed and quickly compressed into a human figure. Finally, it turned into a handsome young man with eyes as bright as the stars. You're not Gasper. Looks like I've come to the wrong place. Dustless frowned and looked at the girl in front of him. He suddenly felt that she was familiar, but he was sure that he had never seen her before, and there was no impression of her. The girl was wearing a gothic lowly dress, and her dark ink-like hair was dancing in the wind. Her skin was white and beautiful, and her jade face was as dazzling as the bright moon. Her deep eyes were very pure and clean, without the slightest flaw. Dustless thought about it and realized that he still didn't know her, but she was somewhat similar to a vague outline in his mind. He had to ask tentatively, Infinite Dragon God Orpheus? You know me? The girl's pupils splashed with faint ripples, and her tone was somewhat surprised. I don't know, I've heard of your legend. Dustless replied truthfully. There were very few people in the world who had seen the Infinite Dragon God Orpheus, but there were many people who had heard of his legend, and Dustless was one of them. You've heard of my legend? That's even better. Be my subordinate obediently, and I'll give you power to help me defeat that evil dragon that's disturbing my peace. When the word evil dragon was mentioned, the infinite dragon god Orpheus' naturally dull face had a rare touch of emotion. Evil dragon? Hearing this, Dustless was speechless, but he understood what Orpheus was talking about. He immediately shook his head and said, I'm sorry, I'm not interested now, and I don't have the extra time to be your subordinate. Although I'm very curious about the great real red dragon god emperor, it's impossible for you to use me to fight against the great red. Orpheus blinked and seemed to be confused. She looked at Dustless in confusion and said, I'm lending you my power, and you're helping me to fight against that evil dragon. Is there anything wrong with that? Of course not. Firstly, I don't need your power. Secondly, I'm not your subordinate, and there's no need for me to fight against the great real red dragon god emperor, according to your orders. That's your personal grudge. The infinite dragon god Orpheus nodded as if she understood. It was difficult for her to understand because she didn't know much about the world. Goodbye. Seeing Orpheus lowering her head and thinking, Dustless was about to leave when a clear voice stopped him. No, you have to help me defeat the Great Red. Orpheus floated in front of Dustless like a ghost, and then simply snapped her fingers, sealing the space exit. This fellow, seeing this, Dustless frowned even more. If he didn't know Orpheus well, he would have thought that she was deliberately looking for trouble. Chapter 1338. Dustless looked at this naive and adorable young lady. If anyone else dared to do this, they might have already been torn into pieces by the raging Dustless. But the infinite dragon god Orpheus was an exception. For some reason, Dustless could not bring himself to kill her when he saw her innocent and adorable face. At the end of the day, you are just a chess piece being used by others. You are just an innocent young lady who does not understand the ways of the world. Looking directly at the adorable face of the infinite dragon god Orpheus, Dustless spoke frankly. In reality, with your strength, you don't even need to borrow the strength of others. You can fight to a draw with the Great Red. Dustless looked meaningfully at the infinite dragon god Orpheus. Without a doubt, the infinite dragon god Orpheus was chased out of the dimensional crevice, and the instigator was the Great Red. But did this mean that Orpheus was not a match for the Great Red? It was a big mistake. If the two dragon gods fought, the entire world would collapse. Perhaps it was because Orpheus realized the seriousness of this problem that she left the dimensional crevice. No. Orpheus' calm eyes showed a rare fluctuation of emotions and a hint of worry. She said, "You are right. If I fight with her at all costs, no one will be able to do anything in the end. However, my hometown and this world will both collapse. That would be too much of a loss. I couldn't tell that you are quite smart. You know the consequences of doing this." Dustless looked at Orpheus in surprise. "So you chose someone like Wally to work with?" Dustless asked curiously. Then, he sighed. "Investing in Wally is not as good as investing in Wally." "You are right. I used to think so too. I plan to gather the two heavenly dragons under my command and train them to a certain level. They will definitely become good helpers." But this was all in the past. Orpheus tapped her chin lightly. Then, she looked at Dustless with sparkling eyes. "I changed my mind. Someone like you can totally replace the two of them." "Poochie." Dustless staggered and almost fell down. He looked at Orpheus with disgust and couldn't help but feel speechless. Although this little loli is simple, she's not stupid. She's very shrewd in some things. She actually knows how to use me as a tool. Compared to Issei and White Dragon Emperor Wally, Dustless's potential was more than just a little bit higher. Even if they were given 100 years, it would be difficult for them to catch up with Dustless's shadow. No matter what, I don't want to work with anyone for the time being. As for the Great Red. A huge red monster appeared in his mind. Dustless did not think that it was a dragon. "I can easily deal with it single-handedly, so there's no need for us to work together at all," Dustless answered frankly as he looked into the eyes of the infinite dragon god Orpheus. "No." The infinite dragon god Orpheus rejected Dustless with an adorable face. Then, he continued to act shamelessly and said, "If you don't cooperate with me, I won't let you go." "I believe you, then it seems that there's even less need for us to work together." Dustless interrupted Orpheus. He looked at the dark void in front of him indifferently and shouted, "God's might." "Poochie." The void suddenly distorted violently and a mysterious vortex appeared. Then, Dustless activated his eye power and tore apart the sealed key of the black void. "This kind of thing is just a small problem for me." Glancing at Orpheus, Dustless's body emitted a warm glow. He turned into a beam of light and disappeared. His speed was so fast that even Orpheus couldn't keep up with him. Only Orpheus and Dustless were left in the space of dead silence. Or rather, it was a short sentence. "We'll meet again if fate allows it." Orpheus' eyes, which were as clear as agate, looked at Dustless who disappeared in the blink of an eye. The thought of dragging him into the pit didn't fade away. Instead, it became stronger and stronger. "We'll meet again soon." At that time, you won't be able to escape from my palm. Orpheus repeated his words a few times, and his gem-like eyes shone brightly. His tone sounded very confident, giving people the illusion that he had Wuchen under control. Outside, above the Carriage King Academy, the dimension was distorted, and countless vortexes were clearly visible. A large number of sorcerers poured out of them and attacked the enchantment of the Carriage King Academy. It's endless. If we don't find the kid named Gasper, these guys can't be killed. Dustless frowned. At the same time, his observation hockey spread out again and swept between heaven and earth. Found him. After a few seconds, Dustless suddenly opened his eyes and looked across the layers of space and saw Gasper, who was caught. Hey! Dustless suddenly turned into a golden light and rushed out. He was durable, but other people in the supernatural research department were exceptions. They were far less thick-skinned than Dustless. That eye looks good. The ability to stop time and space is rare. Entering a special space, Dustless saw a blonde boy in women's clothes. He was bound to a glowing magic circle. It seemed that the strange magic was using this to take advantage of Gasper. There's an intruder, kill him. The few magicians who reacted exclaimed in surprise. Their words revealed deep surprise. Dustless being able to invade this place was not inferior to them. They were all figures at the same level as the Demon King. At the same time, they didn't forget to rush over fearlessly. Silver Will Reincarnation Explosion. The sharpness of the Tensigan appeared. Dustless waved his hand and a fierce chakra storm appeared. The attacking sorcerers were instantly killed. Their bodies were torn apart by the storm, and all the sorcerers were killed. At the same time, it meant that everything was about to end. Chapter 1339. Due to the sheer number of mages in the Colt King Academy, it was almost impossible to kill them all. The battle quickly fell into a stalemate. The three forces felt helpless. They could only set up a defensive barrier and stay inside for the time being. Is there something wrong with that guy? Hyodo Issei said impatiently. Even though the entire Colt King Academy was surrounded by a large barrier, he was still very upset. Being in the same space as White Dragon Emperor Wally, Hyodo Issei felt like he had met his natural enemy. It was as if he could lose his life in the next second. No matter who it was, they would feel uncomfortable, especially when they were surrounded in this space. He might lose his life at any moment. These people are not simple. White Dragon Emperor Wally glanced at the leaders of the three forces silently. He frowned a few times and looked a little serious. Archangel Michael, Sazax, Seraphil, and Athasher were all releasing their magic power to set up a large barrier to protect the Colt King Academy. We have to fight back. It's too passive to just wait like this. Looking at the increasing number of mages in the sky, Sazax finally lost his cool. Archangel Michael and the others nodded silently. But there's nothing we can do about it. Athasher shrugged and said unhappily, this academy takes up a lot of space. Only the four of us can maintain this barrier to protect it. If one of us is missing, what happens if one of us is missing? The ghost's ghostly voice resounded behind him. Asashel turned around and retaliated with a ferocious punch. Bam, bam, bam. Caught off guard, Athasher was sent flying. His magic power was also stopped, and a gap appeared in the barrier. Boom, boom, boom. The mages were like stray cats that smelled blood. They kept attacking the gap, and the gap on the barrier was getting bigger and bigger. What do you mean? Riaz and the others glared at White Dragon Emperor Wally with unfriendly looks. What do I mean? Don't you understand? White Dragon Emperor Wally said casually. At the same time, he also entered the tentacle state of the divine artifact. I actually know about the plan that you guys are talking about. I'm even one of the participants and one of the planners. However, something happened during that time, and my other accomplice hasn't appeared yet. White Dragon Emperor Wally looked at the sky, his face filled with confusion. You, Archangel, Sazak's, and Seraph's expressions changed as they waited for Wally. At this moment, they could only maintain the barrier and couldn't leave. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Looks like I'm getting old. Asashel, who had crawled out of the ruins, was covered in snow. It was not hard to see how painful Wally's punch was. As expected of the governor of the fallen angels. Seeing this, Varley was not surprised. After all, he was the governor of the fallen angels, and he could not be killed with one punch. Before we fight, I want to ask you a question. Brushing off the dust on his body, Asashel asked seriously, my deputy chief inspector found an organization hidden in the three major forces. I think it's called Calamity Mass, and the leader of this organization is the infinite dragon god Orpheus. What is the connection between the people who attacked us and Calamity Mass? The infinite dragon god Orpheus? This name was like a taboo. Those who knew her had a drastic change in expression and showed fear. Even someone as strong as Sazak showed a cautious expression. The infinite dragon god Orpheus was an enemy that even gods feared. It's not just a connection. The people who attacked you this time belonged to the faction of the old demon king. Orpheus himself also participated. That guy might be dead already. White Dragon Emperor Wally laughed eerily. The person he was talking about was naturally dustless. As for why I participated, with a teasing look in his eyes, Wally flapped his wings, and suddenly countless black wings appeared. My name is Wally Lucifer. These words were like a level 10 storm, and Wally's brand new attitude made everyone dizzy. Their brains stopped working for a moment, and they were shocked. Wally Lucifer also indirectly meant that he inherited the Demon King's bloodline and could be regarded as part of the old Demon King's faction. This guy is definitely the strongest, White Dragon Emperor, in history. Asashel said in a heavy tone, full of worries about the future. Perhaps the word miracle was born for me. White Dragon Emperor Wally's expression was arrogant. At the same time, he had the bloodline of the Demon King and one of the strongest God's destruction tools. He indeed had the capital to be arrogant. As long as this barrier can't hold, you guys will be finished sooner or later. The next one is, White Dragon Emperor Wally's gaze turned and stared at Sazak's, Archangel Michael, and Seraphil. His gaze finally landed on Seraphil. You'll be eliminated first. After saying that, Wally swooped down. Seraphil, who was trying her best to stabilize the barrier, looked terrible. She couldn't free herself to deal with Wally at the moment. She could only watch as White Dragon Emperor attacked, her eyes filled with despair. Boom! 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 A sharp roar resounded throughout the world, and then a golden beam of light descended from the sky. The moment Wally was about to touch Seraphil, the golden light shrouded him. Get away from me, big white lizard. The powerful light wave turned into a powerful impact, forcing the aggressive White Dragon Emperor to retreat. You're just a loser. I don't know where you get your confidence from. Don't you think so, White Lizard? Chapter 1340. Within the beam of light, a large number of photons condensed and compressed, turning into a figure that everyone was familiar with. Impossible, you should have been killed by Orpheus, how come nothing happened to you? Wally was no longer as arrogant as before, and his voice was several times louder, sounding a little harsh. Hearing that, Dustless dug his ears and pretended to be disgusted. You are not a eunuch, why are you shouting like that? Do you have some kind of special fetish? After that, Dustless purposely kept a distance from Wally. Hearing that, Wally's handsome face swelled, as if it was about to explode, and his face turned red. Being with this guy really makes me angry every time. Wally's face was green with anger, and the veins on his forehead were popping. If it were not for the fact that he still had many questions for Dustless to answer, he would have rushed up and fought him. The companion you were talking about, is this guy? The void suddenly twisted, and a woman with wheat-colored skin fell out, covered in blood, and there was an obvious dent in her abdomen. Just by looking at it, one could tell that she was in a terrible state. Of course, there was also a blond boy dressed in female clothing, who looked a little pale. He was one of Riaz's dependents, Gasper. What's this guy's name again? Dustless scratched his head with a headache, and could not think of anything for a long time. Oh yeah, I remember she said something about inheriting, Leviathan, blood or something. After Dustless said that, Seraphal's face suddenly became unnatural. Not only Sazax, but she, who was the Leviathan, was also the new Demon King. You bastard, there's no way you could escape from Orpheus. I know her strength, you must have used some dirty tricks. Wally looked as if he had seen through everything. In your world, the infinite dragon god Orpheus is invincible, but I'm sorry, it's a fact that I came back safe and sound, and it doesn't matter if it was a trick or not. Dustless did not explain the matter between him and Orpheus. The dormant energy in his body surged as he smirked. Since I'm back, you're in for it. Hearing these words, Wally, who was already unhappy with Dustless, clenched his fists even harder. Dustless' tone made Wally particularly uncomfortable. Before you talk big, you'd better take a look at your surroundings, Wally said in a sarcastic tone with a hint of schadenfreude. In the sky, a dense swarm of magicians had already surrounded them. There are so many of them, several times more than before. Riaz, Junai, and the others were having a headache, especially Riaz's family. They all spread their wings, intending to fly into the sky to support Dustless. I didn't expect you to be so charming that someone would be willing to go to hell with you. Wally curled his lips and said disdainfully. Quantity? Do you think numbers alone can change anything? Dustless could not help but laugh. He could only secretly judge the White Dragon Emperor Wally's shallow knowledge and narrow vision. This guy always thought that if he could not do something, others could not do it. This idea was really childish and idiotic. Buzz buzz buzz, the night was pervasive. Dustless's body floated out bursts of golden light. It was completely different from the previous photons. It was another kind of energy. It was also different from the holiness of the glint fruit just now. This energy wave was abnormally evil. What a strange thing. Sazax and the others locked their eyes on Dustless, who was floating in the sky. Time seemed to have stopped at this moment. Everyone looked at Dustless in confusion. Even the large group of magicians who were attacking him stopped. The materialized light and shadow on his body changed dramatically, turning into a monster that looked like a human but not a human. It was an incomplete miniature double-faced Kinsusunu, and it also made a hand seal with Dustless. A very dangerous halo radiated from his body. Dustless said expressionlessly, Tian Jie Jin Xing. Then he removed the Kinsusunu and quietly looked down at Wally. Nothing happened. Is he trying to scare us? Or are you trying to scare me? After a few seconds of silence, White Dragon Emperor Wally looked around and did not find anything special. Is he really trying to scare us? Riaz, Junai, and the other students of the Supernatural Research Department were confused. That's not right, Sazax suddenly spoke. There was a rare touch of emotion in his voice. Look at the sky. Look carefully. Look with your heart. Because it was night, Riaz and the others did not notice the slowly falling meteor, but Sazax and the others clearly saw it. Riaz and the others looked at the sky. The White Dragon Emperor himself was no exception. Oh my god, Asashel stood up excitedly. His eyes were bloodshot, and his heart was beating violently. It seemed like his H*PS were about to jump out. The strongest White Dragon Emperor in history had just arrived, and now the most monstrous, human, in history had appeared. Was the end of the world? That's a meteor. He can summon a meteor. And such a big one at that? The end of the world is really here. The breasts of Riaz and the others rose and fell like waves. She was panting heavily, so her cleavage swayed even more. That heavy ball of flesh was about to burst out of her clothes. That was not a meteor, it was a natural disaster sent down by the wrath of some god. A bunch of idiots, what are you standing there for? Do you all want to die? Shoot him down. Wally yelled when he saw that the magicians were collectively petrified and did not move. His heart was cold and desperate. If he was hit by that thing, forget about defeating the Great Red, his future would only be a dead end to hell. Chapter 1341. What kind of person could summon meteorites to destroy living beings? Demons could not do it, fallen angels could not do it, and the same went for angels. Mere humans could not do it, and even some people who claimed to be gods could do it. As expected of the person I value. His potential is indeed unlimited. The elegant girl was sitting in the void. The corners of her mouth were slightly raised, and there was a faint smile on her face, which was a rare sight. This person was the infinite dragon god, Orpheus. She was not in a hurry to leave. With the intention of understanding more about Dustless, Orpheus quietly looked at the distant horizon. She was about 10 kilometers away from the center of the battle between Dustless and the others. However, what shocked Orpheus was that even though she was so far away, the falling meteorites still included her in the attack range. As a result, Orpheus had no choice but to retreat again. What a mysterious person. There doesn't seem to be such a person in this world. Ever since Dustless left, Orpheus began to think about Dustless's background. After all, this guy was unreliable. It refreshed Orpheus' belief that the Great Red was the best in the world. I'm really looking forward to what kind of sparks will be created between you and the Great Red. After taking a deep look at Dustless, Orpheus finally disappeared into the dark night sky. Boom! 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 Realizing the existence of the meteorites, the magicians worked hard to bombard them. Thousands of energy gathered together and blasted on the meteorites. Ka ka ka. However, the effect was not complementary. Only a small number of meteorite fragments fell off. It was no different from a fool's dream to destroy the entire meteorite. Feel despair. His eyes were emotionless. Dustless instantly transformed into the Grim Reaper. The meteorite above his head was the sharp scythe that slaughtered all living beings. No, I can't just sit here and wait for death. My dream has not been realized yet. I can't be buried in this godforsaken place. White Dragon Emperor Wally's eyes flashed with madness. His body exuded an abnormal energy wave. I, awakened as the second heavenly dragon, deprived of everything, the body envies the infinite, the heart seeks dreams, I, the overbearing white dragon, invite thou to enter the limits of stainless. After a series of incantations, Wally's posture also changed dramatically. His body became larger, and his magic power increased sharply. Before, he was only a human wearing armor. Now, there were 2 traces of a dragon's aura. Ao ao ao, dragon roars resounded through the sky. White Dragon Emperor Wally's new stance stunned everyone. What's that? This feeling is really unpleasant. Issei was sweating profusely. The stronger White Dragon King Wally was, the more uncomfortable he felt. It wasn't that he was jealous of Wally. It was just that the stronger White Dragon King Wally was, the more pressure he felt. That guy is really a genius. He can use Tyrant Dragon mode so quickly. Asashel was right. Wally Lucifer is indeed the strongest White Dragon Emperor in history. The Red Dragon Emperor said with a hint of envy in his tone. His old rival's host was so powerful, and the second one was his host. Regarding this, Deleg could only chuckle. In this state, he has godlike strength. Drake said softly. Gulp. Godlike strength? Are you sure? Issei asked excitedly. His eyes were burning with flames as if he could see himself becoming a god one day and flirting with all the girls in the world. Of course, as long as you work hard, you can also enter that mode, Drake said with certainty. After entering Tyrannosaurus mode, not only will you have godlike strength, you can also. Drake said in an extremely confident tone. Boom. 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 The sudden commotion interrupted Drake's speech. Destructive light beams covered Wally, who was in Tyrant Dragon mode, and fell mercilessly. Crack. 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 A crisp sound came from the tyrant dragon's indestructible defense. What's going on? Didn't they say that tyrant dragon mode has godlike strength? Hayato Issei rubbed his eyes and asked. When he looked closer, he saw Wally's head being stepped on by Dustless. Tyrannosaurus's extraordinary silver body was also faintly blackened. It was obvious that he had been badly burned. It's just a big lizard. What are you screaming for? Dustless looked down at White Dragon Emperor Wally and asked calmly, It's night now. Didn't your family teach you to be quiet when others are sleeping? Roar. Roar. White Dragon Emperor Wally screamed as if he was protesting against Dustless, but he was ignored. Is this what you mean by godlike strength? It's as simple as whack-a-mole. Issei's mouth twitched as he questioned Drake. If that's godlike strength, doesn't that mean Dustless can easily kill a god? This is an accident. That guy named Dustless can't be counted. He's a special case. Just like the computer games you humans often play, there are always all kinds of overpowered bugs. That guy is a bug in this world, so he's an unstable factor and must be excluded. Drake retorted with a red face. His dragon face was burning, and he was extremely depressed. He had just finished speaking, and Dustless came to slap him in the face. The speed of the slap was too fast. But this guy is really sick. I might not be able to defeat him even when I'm at my peak. Red Dragon Emperor Drake's tone was filled with fear. In his heart, he had already classified Dustless as the Great One, real Red Dragon Emperor, and the infinite dragon god Orpheus. Chapter 1342. It was no wonder that the Red Dragon Emperor Delegu had such an unrealistic idea. After all, Wu Chen was so powerful. Suppressing the shock in his heart, Hayato Issei asked curiously, Drake, is this guy like the legends? Is he the reincarnation of a god? The rumor of, Dustless is the reincarnation of a god, had already spread in the demon realm. Hearing this, Drake fell silent. His huge dragon eyes were filled with doubt as he said blankly, To be fair, I once had the same idea, but the gods of all mythological systems are not as good as him, gods are not as good as him. Hayato Issei's hair stood on end, and his tone became a few notches higher. Gods? What's that? Hearing this, Drager showed a look of disdain and replied disapprovingly, A mere deity is nothing. I can tell you that when I was at my peak, the White Dragon Emperor Rubian and I were both above the gods. A mere deity is not worthy of being in the Hall of Elegance. Drake's tone was extremely arrogant, filled with pride and arrogance. Then between you and Dustless, who's stronger? Hayato Issei blinked with interest. Hearing this, Drake paused for a moment before he said with certainty, He's just a little bit stronger than me. Remember, just a little bit, like a grain of sand. At this moment, in another direction. Impossible, I've already entered Tyrant Dragon mode, how can I still not be your match? Even the result is the same. It's one thing to lose in Forbidden mode, but why did I still lose in Tyrant Dragon mode? It should be because you're too weak. Hearing this, Dustless spoke, shattering White Dragon Emperor Wally's confidence as he said softly, I never said that I used all my strength when I fought you, Wally. Hearing this, White Dragon Emperor Wally was so angry that he trembled. He felt extremely wronged. In the past, he naively thought that he could easily defeat Dustless with Forbidden mode. He did not expect that he would still be defeated with Tyrant Dragon mode. I will not lose so easily. White Dragon Emperor Wally struggled in his death throes. Enraged, he erupted with powerful energy fluctuations and miraculously forced Dustless to retreat. What a strange item. Dustless frowned as he stared at White Dragon Emperor Wally. The White Dragon Emperor's light wings and the Red Dragon Emperor's gauntlet both had the same characteristic. The more emotional the host was, the more power they could unleash. Right now, Wally seemed to be learning from Hayato Issei. AO 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 AO. White Dragon Emperor Wally's power gradually increased, almost multiplying. Because the light on his body was too obvious, it felt like it was daytime even though it was night. How boring. Dustless shook his head in boredom. His patience gradually disappeared. He planned to persuade White Dragon Emperor Wally to get out of here so as to avoid humiliating himself. However, a thick beam of light whizzed over. Hurry up and leave. If we are defeated, we will also be affected. Sazax and the others hurriedly dodged the attack. If they were hit, they wouldn't feel good either. What do we do about Dustless? Riaz asked worriedly. Two wings extended from her back, and she was about to fly over. Come back, Riaz. Gilifia pulled the anxious Riaz back and smiled bitterly. If that guy is really killed, it means the end of the world. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. White Dragon Emperor Wally's furious attack could destroy heaven and earth. An extremely thick silver light swept over. I don't expect to defeat you, but at least show some fear. White Dragon Emperor Wally said dumbly. He didn't expect to defeat Dustless either. He only hoped to regain some face. But he was destined to be disappointed. Wuchen looked at the incoming light expressionlessly. There was no extra emotion on his face. Not only was he not afraid, but his kind black eyes were also filled with anticipation. Boom boom boom. The light bombarded Dustless with full force. The entire world trembled with the shockwave of the explosion. Even the sky was distorted. Is he dead? Everyone looked towards where Dustless was, their faces filled with curiosity. But the next second, they were all stunned. His expression was normal, and his black eyes didn't change at all. He was still as relaxed as before. Not to mention being injured, Dustless's clothes were still very clean. This is your swan song? Not bad, I guess. Dustless gave him a look of appreciation. When he opened Kinsusanu, there were actually some small cracks. It was already commendable for Wally to be able to do this. Not bad. Hearing this, Wally's face darkened. He cursed in his heart. This was too much of a blow. Now it's my turn to fight back, young man. Dustless tilted his head, thinking about how to deal with Wally. After a while, he extended his thumb, and a blue energy ball appeared. Wang Su's flash. The golden sphere whizzed out, and the places it passed by exploded one after another. They were easily torn apart. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. It was extremely fast. The moment it flew out, it approached Wally and exploded violently. Boom boom boom. The golden light spread to Wally. His indestructible armor was like an iron sheet being melted layer by layer. It couldn't withstand a single blow. Wait and see. White Dragon Emperor Wally fiercely glared at Dustless. Realizing that it was not enough, he could only flee in a sorry state. The difference in strength between the two was like heaven and earth. Staying behind would only bring shame upon himself. Chapter 1343. Dustless was not surprised that White Dragon Emperor Wally was defeated. Unless he wanted to stay and die, running away was his only choice. There was no other way. You let him go just like that? Riaz and the others from the Paranormal Research Department surrounded Dustless. They looked at the White Dragon Emperor Wally who was running away in disgrace. I have no feud with him. Why would I kill him? Dustless asked in return, full of confidence. Even if the Taishan comes again, I can easily defeat him, and I don't think he can be my enemy anymore. Why? Riaz and the others asked blankly, all looking at Dustless. This guy was too mysterious, and they could not wait to find out how many secrets he had. Intuition, Dustless shrugged and said casually. Hearing that, the group of girls immediately rolled their eyes, secretly cursing Dustless for talking nonsense. Damn it. This was also the base camp of Wally's gang in the mysterious dimensional world. What do you think, Wally? the infinite dragon god Orpheus appeared without anyone noticing. Her beautiful eyes stared at the battered and injured Wally, and a strange look flashed across her eyes. You came at the right time. Why didn't you stop him? It's the first time in my life that I've been beaten so badly. It's the first time I've suffered such a big loss. Wally was furious, and his temper was extremely bad. After the battle with Dustless, the confidence that he had painstakingly accumulated over the years was shattered. Sigh, the infinite dragon god Orpheus also sighed softly, which was rare, and said in a tone that was within her power, I tried to control that guy, but I failed. All in all, it's not a loss for you to lose to him. If I were to fight him, I might not even have a chance of winning. If this was said by Dustless, Wally could immediately laugh it off as a joke. However, since it was said by Orpheus herself, he had to consider it carefully. Is he really that terrifying? Wally took a deep breath. Even though he had a deep understanding of Dustless's strength, he still felt that it was impossible for him to defeat Orpheus. After all, she had unlimited power. I have limitless power, but so can others. A strange look flashed across Orpheus' cute little face as he waved his hand in an imposing manner and said in a dignified tone, anyway, he's not our enemy yet. I'm confident that with a little effort, I can turn him into a teammate in the trench. Remember, he's a potential ally. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. I'm so sorry, Dustless, Kuan. In the dimly lit room, a gentle and apologetic voice sounded. Dustless, Genova, Wisteria, Rena, and the other person who spoke just now, Archangel Michael. It's fine. I'm bored anyway. I can use this opportunity to skip school. That way, Riaz won't have anything to say. Dustless waved his hand, his face full of generosity. Listening to his teacher's lecture, he felt like his head was about to explode. I've already told you before that I'm going to leave Genova and Wisteria Rena at your place to train. I have no choice but to disturb you. To express my apologies, please accept this. A mighty lightsaber appeared in Michael's hand, exuding an indescribable aura. It was unusually cold. When they looked at each other, their eyes felt a slight burning sensation. This is Ascalon with the Dragonslayer's sword. If you don't mind, please accept it. With that, the beautifully shaped Dragonslayer's sword in Michael's hand floated to Dustless. In other words, this is a reward? Dustless glanced at it and asked. In the end, it was still a subordinate. So be it. I'd be an idiot if I didn't take advantage of it. You're right. I'll leave the two of them to you from now on. Seeing that Dustless had Ascalon as his subordinate, Michael let out a sigh of relief. If Dustless wanted to send Genova and Wisteria Rena back to him in the future, he would definitely be embarrassed. This was also a good way to build a good relationship with Dustless, who had great potential. He even ordered Genova and Wisteria Rena to have a breakthrough relationship with Dustless. That way, when Dustless rose in the future, the angels who were gradually declining would also be able to benefit. It would be best if they could take advantage of the situation to rise up. He even planned the marriage between the two girls and Dustless. After all, he was a pure human, so there was nothing wrong with it. Archangel Michael really put in a lot of effort. Don't worry. I'll definitely train the two of them until they become famous figures in the world. Dustless patted his chest and promised. Although he knew Michael's plan, he had no intention of rejecting it. In fact, this was indeed a small matter for Dustless. Besides, Dustless had a good impression of the two girls. Although his swordsmanship was average, Dustless had seen many swordsmanship masters, such as Hawkeye and Red Hair Shanks. He still remembered their swordsmanship in his head. He could definitely teach them to Genova and Wisteria Rena. I've said what I wanted to say. Goodbye. After saying that, Michael's body emitted a warm light that dissipated until it disappeared. Finally, I have some free time. Dustless casually laid down without caring about his image. His eyes were filled with fatigue. When he was about to take a nap, he suddenly realized that his body had become much heavier. His eyes that had just closed opened again. Genova and Rena. How dare you? Why are you two sitting on my body? Get off me. Chapter 1344. Someone inexplicably sat on his body. If it was an ordinary person, Wu Qin would have already smashed him into pieces with a slap. The sudden actions of Genova and Irina really made Dustless confused and abnormally puzzled. You're our master, it's necessary for us to know each other better, Rena said matter-of-factly as she tried to take off Dustless's pants. Hold it, all of you stop. Noticing the loosening of his pants, Dustless quickly called for them to stop. Looking at the two women who were like wolves and tigers, he could not help but wonder what kind of crazy place the church was. Who taught you all this? Dustless asked impatiently as he rolled up his sleeves, as if he was going to beat up the person who taught Genova and Rena bad things. Didn't Master and Riaz come here the same way? Genova asked, confused. That's because, hearing that, Dustless opened his mouth but found himself speechless. He did not expect Genova to see him being intimate with Riaz. Riaz and I did it because, the reason is not important, I want to have children with Master. Genova said unreasonably as she pounced on Dustless's body and started tearing off his clothes. Rena was no exception. Her eyes were glowing as she stared at Dustless as if she was looking at a delicacy. Dustless's body made her hungry. There's something wrong with the way they look at me. Noticing the two women's strange behavior, Dustless frowned slightly. Genova and Rena gave off the feeling that they were brainwashed. Dustless immediately thought of a handsome man, Archangel Michael. In order to win me over, that guy might have fed them some bewitching potion. Dustless did not know whether to laugh or cry. He was conflicted about Archangel Michael's good intentions. Although this kind of luck was not bad, it came so suddenly that he could not accept it. He had no choice but to comfort the two women. I have something to do now. When I'm free, we'll discuss the big problem of having children. Genova and Rena looked at Dustless as if they had been electrocuted. Really? Biting their lips, the two women asked nervously as if they felt that it was impossible. Although I've lied to countless people, I have my principles. I've never lied to women. Dustless said without blushing or panting. When it came to telling lies, it was one after another. Move your faces closer. Wu Qin waved his hand with a gentle smile on his face. Genova and Irina looked at each other. Although they were a little confused, they still came over obediently. Archangel Michael had told them to just follow Dustless's words as if they were the Lord's orders. Moi. While Genova and Rena were thinking, Dustless attacked decisively. He left his saliva on their faces and used his mouth to sneak an attack on their delicate faces. However, the two women did not look embarrassed. Instead, their faces were filled with joy and excitement. One of Dustless's thoughts was confirmed. It should be Michael's doing. That's why they're so loyal to me. They really like to poke their nose into other people's business. Are angels also so nosy? Dustless stood up and patted his clothes. After brushing off the dust, he stretched and said, "Let's go home together." Rena and Genova did not have a place to stay. They had to stand with Dustless, so they could only stay in Zhu Nai's house. Zhu Nai's house was suitable for 2 or 3 people. Once there were more people, it would immediately become crowded. Sazax was thoughtful. In just one night, he had transformed Zhu Nai's house into a magnificent villa. He even said that he would send 500 maids over. Riaz, who knew Dustless's personality well, rejected him on the spot. In the end, she only sent Gulifia and a few other servants to take care of Dustless and the rest. This is the privilege of the strong. As long as you're strong enough, you can have anything you want. Under the setting sun, the golden villa looked like it was plated with a layer of gold. It was beautiful. The surroundings were elegant, and the scenery was refreshing. It was like a paradise. Dustless stood in front of the villa. Beside him were Gulifia and the other maids. That bastard Sazax, sent his wife here as a servant. Dustless's mouth twitched. While Gulifia was one of the maids, and this was her job, sending his wife to take care of his future brother-in-law was something that Dustless admired. Demons sure are powerful. In the human world, a villa like this would take at least a few years, or even a decade, to complete. Dustless sat down leisurely. Gulifia and the other maids immediately crowded around him and skillfully brewed a fragrant afternoon tea for him. Have a seat, Gulifia. If I'm sitting alone, it'll be too much of a nuisance if all of you stand and look at me. Dustless pointed at an empty seat beside him. However, Gulifia shook her head resolutely and said in a cold, professional tone, Lord Dustless, please conduct yourself with dignity. It's my working hours now. Cough cough cough. Hearing that, Dustless spat out all the tea he was drinking. Looking up at the slender and expressionless Gulifia with interest, Dustless did not expect her to call him Lord. Moreover, Gulifia was the Demon King's wife. What an untactful woman. Shaking his head, Dustless did not want to waste any more words with Gulifia. The world of demons, no, the entire world was like that. There was a saying that could be used to describe it: when a man gets to the top, even his chickens and dogs get to the top. Chapter 1345. Now that Gulifia was calling Dustless Lord, it meant that she acknowledged his strength and status. It was necessary for a strong person to be respected and treated with the highest respect. Although Dustless found it strange that his wife was sent as a maid, perhaps it was normal in the eyes of the locals. Perhaps this was a sign of trust and respect for Dustless. Gulifia. Dustless suddenly spoke after taking a sip of tea. Gulifia's dark eyebrows were knitted together, and her jade-like face was filled with confusion. Is there something wrong? Lord Dustless. Of course there's something wrong. Hurry up and get rid of the word Lord, Dustless said with a straight face. Thinking back to what happened in the past, he started to hate this word. Anyone who called him Lord was either a traitor or someone who was plotting against him. Call me young master, I like it, Dustless said with a smile, but Gulifia didn't understand what he meant. Understood, young master Wu Qin. Gulifia opened her mouth and replied softly. What a cold attitude, no different from a zombie. Shaking his head in boredom, Wu Qin drank up the black tea. Then he rested his head on his arms and closed his eyes to take a nap. Gulifia didn't say anything and stood beside Dustless like a spear, like a female knight temporarily protecting Dustless's safety. Even if she knew it was unnecessary, she still did her job. Huff. Huff. Huff, his even breathing was very peaceful. Gulifia subconsciously turned her head, and saw Dustless's lazy posture with an infatuated smile on his face. He looked very satisfied and content. Perhaps this guy only shows his normal appearance when he's sleeping, Gulifia muttered to herself. Gulifia murmured in her heart. Normally, Dustless gave off a terrifying and evil vibe, but now, he was at peace. Zhu Nai's house, or rather, a newly built mansion. The members of the Supernatural Research Department were all gathered, including the Gonko Berserk Fiend, Ting Yicheng, and the cross-dressing young man Dustless saved a few days ago, Gasper. Training in the underworld? Dustless was speechless at Riaz's sudden announcement. Training was too boring and unnecessary for him. Of course, everyone must improve their strength. The Supernatural Research Department is a team, we can't rely on one person. Riaz glanced coquettishly at Dustless and said with a righteous tone. Hearing that, Dustless could only shrug helplessly. He actually agreed with Riaz's idea. His gaze swept across Zhu Nai, Kitten, Aisha, and the others, as well as Genova and Wisteria Irina. They definitely needed to improve their strength. Then let's go to the demonic realm. Dustless thought of Riaz's mother, Venelana's voluptuous body, and his calm mind was instantly shaken. Ever since he gave her a Logia devil fruit, Venelana listened to everything Dustless said and worshipped him like a god. She would never refuse Dustless's orders. Please wait for a moment, I'll go make some preparations. Seeing that Dustless and the rest had agreed, Gulifia began to prepare the items for their journey. On the way to the underworld, Dustless stared blankly at the scenery outside in a luxurious carriage exclusive to the Gimli family. Gulifia stood beside Dustless like a guardian deity. "Don't always follow me, Gulifia. I have nothing to do now, so go rest." Dustless waved his hand impatiently. At first, it felt good to be protected by Gulifia, but as time went on, Dustless could not accept it. She even followed Dustless to the point where she peed and peed. "This is my responsibility, please don't make things difficult for me." Gulifia opened her mouth and indirectly rejected Dustless. "This trip to the underworld is not just for training, right? I believe there are other issues." After a while, Dustless suddenly asked Gulifia. Gulifia frowned and remembered that Dustless was no longer the same as before. She gritted her teeth and said, "This time, 3 factions have gathered in the underworld, and they have also invited the main god of the Norse mythology, Odin." At this point, Gulifia paused. Her meaning was self-evident. In order to deal with the threat of the Calamity Cluster, the demons, fallen angels, and angels had set their sights on the other factions. The Norse mythology was one of them. "They're just looking for some random people to use as cover," Dustless curled his lips and said disdainfully. At the same time, he vaguely understood Sazax's purpose. He said proudly, "Apart from training, Sazax also wants me, your brother-in-law, to come and hold the fort, right?" Gulifia was silent for a while before nodding. This time, they were indeed using Dustless's power. After all, the main god of the Norse mythology had come this time. If they did not bring out some powerful characters, Sazax would feel embarrassed. Dustless was one of the best choices. "Then you have to be careful. Don't fail miserably," Dustless reminded her in a friendly manner. He remembered that when Odin agreed to the alliance, an evil god called Loki came out to mess things up, causing a series of troubles later. Will someone come out to mess things up? Gulifia's gem-like clear eyes glowed with wisdom. She was also a smart person and understood Dustless's meaning after a short thought. Chapter 1346. Dustless nodded seriously. Not only did the evil god Loki come out to mess things up, but he was also inextricably linked to Calamity. "Thank you for your kindness, young Master Dustless. I will definitely inform Lord Sazax." Gulifia bowed and thanked him seriously. "Forget about the verbal thanks. I need physical comfort. How about this, when we get back to the Gimli family, you can help me take a bath." Dustless smirked and winked at Gulifia. He didn't stop until her face turned red from teasing. "In your dreams," Gulifia said rudely. At the same time, she tried to find a trace of disappointment on Dustless's face. No reaction. "This guy was just messing with me," Gulifia whispered. Dustless just looked at the scenery outside the train quietly. He didn't show any disappointment or sadness. Clearly, he was just messing with Gulifia. On the contrary, Gulifia felt a sense of loss in her heart. Space, distorted? Dustless was surprised. The world in his eyes changed drastically, as if he had fallen into a space-time tunnel. Dustless felt something unusual. He also vaguely saw the others in the supernatural research lab. Buzz, at this moment, the world in front of Dustless suddenly lit up with a huge white light. A cold aura swept over, and his feet stepped on the ground. What is this place? In an unfamiliar environment, Zhu Nai and the others exclaimed. Everyone's line of sight looked at Wu Chen at the same time. He had already become the deputy minister in name and in reality. It's probably a test made by some bored guy. Everyone, relax. There's no need to be nervous. Dustless shrugged and said nonchalantly. Boom. At the same time, the mountain behind them shook violently. Then, it exploded under the powerful force. A crimson monster suddenly appeared. It had an extremely powerful aura and was covered in thick, hideous scales. What a huge lizard. Dustless exclaimed after seeing this huge monster. Roar! To his surprise, the monster Dustless was staring at let out an earth-shattering roar. I'm a dragon. Oh. So it's really a dragon. No wonder I felt it was similar to the white dragon Emperor Wally. Dustless smiled and scratched the back of his head awkwardly. Everyone couldn't help but laugh when they heard that. The Crimson Dragon, on the other hand, was fuming with rage. He sincerely felt that he was being looked down upon by Wu Qin. Especially that contemptuous gaze. How was he looking at the great dragon race? Instead, he was looking at a weak lizard. It felt like its dignity was being trampled on. Boom! A blazing pillar of flames engulfed the dragon's mouth, instantly pulling Dustless into the sea of flames. Dustless' figure disappeared. Brat, this is the consequence of offending and humiliating me. Looking at Dustless, who was burned to ashes, the dragon suddenly appeared and said. Then, its huge eyes turned towards Zhu Nai and the others, revealing a look of devastation. I say. You can't be thinking that you can eliminate me with such a shallow move, right? Light appeared out of thin air and slowly condensed into Dustless's body. Looking at the huge lizard that was full of flaws, Dustless raised his hand and mercilessly kicked it. Light speed kick. A straight flash whizzed out. Although it was aware of the danger, it had already dodged quickly. However, no matter how fast it was not worth mentioning compared to Light. It was inevitable that it would suffer a great loss in the end. Boom! 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 The crimson lizard's head exploded with a blinding flash. The powerful explosion flattened the surrounding ground. The lizard was also blasted back. Its body smashed into the thick mountain before it could stop. The defense of this kind of scale armor is not bad. Dustless nodded secretly. The light speed kick only caused a shock to him, but it did not really hurt the dragon. Although calling them the Dragon Clan is suspicious of them using their connections to intimidate others, they are indeed very capable to be called the strongest clan in the world. Being able to offset most of the power of the light speed kick, it could be seen that the dragon race was not ordinary. It was impossible for an ordinary person to break through those thick scales. What a powerful strength. If it was not for the problem of my body, I would have been hit by his attack. Even so, his pure strength is extraordinary. The crimson dragon's head was still burning with flames, but it was safe and sound. Just as Dustless had guessed, most of the attacks it received were blocked by the scales on the outer layer of its skin. However, the defense of the scales was not omnipotent. Looking closely, the center of the area that was hit by Dustless's attack was deeply dented and turned into scrap metal. The next time it received the same attack, it would be beaten up. You are very strong. Remember my name. I am Demon Dragon Tanny, reincarnated from a demon. The huge dragon eyes focused on Dustless and could not move. Tanny had already forgotten the mission that he was suddenly asked to do. His eyes were like torches as he looked down at Dustless. His battle intent was overflowing. The minister is not here for the time being. Everyone work together and listen to my command. Zhu Nai showed the spirit of a deputy minister. 2 huge wings extended from his back and he flew into the sky. His phoenix eyes looked down at Demon Dragon Tanny fearlessly. What an eyesore, little demon girl. Demon Dragon Tanny said unhappily. Being looked down at by a weak person, he could not vent his anger. He opened his mouth and spat out a thick pillar of fire. However, Dustless instantly appeared in front of the pillar of fire. Chapter 1347. Dustless floated in the sky, quietly blocking the paint on the wall. He was like a majestic mountain, like a natural barrier that was impossible to cross. Trying to hurt my Zhu Nai in front of me, little lizard, you've got guts. Dustless said faintly. He almost said my wife wrongly, but he quickly changed his words when he realized that something was wrong. You're just a firefly, and you want to compete with the moon? You're asking for humiliation. Staring at the thick fire pillar that was coming at him, Dustless's eyes changed rapidly, vaguely flickering with black flames. His gaze focused on the incoming fire pillar. Amaterasu. The black netherworld descended from the sky, and without any time to react, it devoured and destroyed Demon Dragon Tanny's fire pillar at lightning speed. It had only been a few seconds from start to finish. Black flames? Demon Dragon Tanny, who was stunned, was shocked, and the way he looked at Dustless also changed. "You're really strong, you're qualified to fight with me, puny guy." Demon Dragon Tanny's muscular wings flapped gently, and his huge body ignored the existence of gravity. He walked in the sky like a migratory bird, stopped in the clouds, and looked down at Dustless, who was abnormally tiny on the ground. "Puny? You're right, you're really puny." Dustless sneered. His body was like a flood dam, and endless chakra gushed out. A giant that could destroy heaven and earth was instantly formed. He wore a Tengu helmet on his head, and a simple and heavy samurai suit on his body. There were 2 long swords that could shatter the world at his waist, and it made one's scalp tingle. The golden giant stood between heaven and earth. Dustless was instantly as dazzling as the sun, and everyone couldn't move their eyes away from him, staring at him in a daze. His height of a few hundred meters was despairing. Even if one ignored the giant's strength, just his height alone was enough to make one tremble in fear. At first, Demon Dragon Tanny, who was soaring in the sky, looked down at Dustless, but now he was just wandering around the waist of Dustless's complete body, Kensusunu. Gulp. The students of the Paranormal Research Department stared at the towering giant in awe. Due to its ridiculous height, it even blocked out the sun. The sunlight was replaced by Dustless's complete Kensusunu. Golden light sprinkled down, but what shot down was not the warm sunlight, but the light of destruction that could destroy the world. Is he trying to get rid of us as well? This kind of colossus can cause landslides and cracks the earth with just a slight movement. The tremors might even be able to trample us to death. Issei Hyuga said gloomily. Usually, he did not like Wu Chen. He was not envious of Wu Chen's strength, but he was jealous of his harem. "Don't worry, Dustless classmate wouldn't do that kind of thing," Shiba Yuto said with a smile. However, he was also frightened by this monster. A height of 100 meters was enough to suppress the sky. Maybe it was just like what Hyoto Issei had said. Maybe Wu Chen had mistaken them for insects and trampled them to death. "Let's retreat. We will only be a hindrance if we stay here." Zhu Nai had no choice but to give the order and leave the battlefield to the 2 colossi. Hey, Pocket Dragon, do you still think you're big this time? Are you as big as my complete body, Kensusunu? If you think you're small enough, I can make him bigger. Dustless asked jokingly. Kensusunu's height would be increased again by incorporating other abilities such as immortal arts. Looking down at Demon Dragon Tanny, who was flying around, Dustless had a teasing expression on his face. He hooked his finger at him, and the meaning was self-evident. "Humph, it's just an empty shell," Demon Dragon Tanny retorted with a red face. His red old face became even redder. He was disgusted by Dustless. Dustless was just a tiny grain of sand a moment ago. Now, he had transformed into an ancient godlike existence, and Demon Dragon Tanny had become a baby in his eyes. Demon Dragon Tanny was gloomy. "This thing is just an empty shell. I can kill it in one hit." Demon Dragon Tanny bared his sawtooth-like fangs, and a huge fireball condensed in his mouth. "Seriously, I wanted to train them. How did it turn out like this?" On a mountain far away, Asashel and Gulifia were beside Laius. "This is all because you 2 hid it from him," Gulifia said indifferently. At the same time, she glanced at Asashel from the corner of her eyes. He probably had other plans. He wanted to use the legendary dragon to test Dustless's strength. Boom, boom, boom. Thick flames attacked. The huge pillar of fire was only 7 to 8 meters thick. The high density of the flames could even melt diamonds in an instant. Not bad. But Kensusunu's golden sword was unsheathed from its scabbard. Dustless controlled the Tachi of light with his mind. Still too weak. Boom boom boom. The tip of the Tachi of light flashed with a flash of sword light. Like a hurricane, it instantly destroyed the incoming pillar of fire and crushed it with an unstoppable force, turning it into sparks that filled the sky. But this was just the beginning. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The unstoppable blade continued forward. It was unstoppable. Even the lazy clouds collapsed on their own. Everything that came into contact with it was destroyed. The range of the attack from the front to the back was actually dozens of kilometers away, and there was an endless gap in the depths of the sky. This state, and this unparalleled attack. It's already surpassed me at my peak, Hyudo Issei's divine weapon, Drake, said numbly. Ordinary dragons were like pocket-sized people in front of Ken Susanoo. Only the Great Red could compare. And the most shocking thing was that from Dustless's tone, this majestic giant seemed to be able to grow bigger. It was not at its peak. Chapter 1348. The power of Ken Susanoo's perfect form was revealed without a doubt. The 100-meter-tall body looked like the culprit that destroyed the world. The ferocious Tengu armor made people not dare to look at it directly. Being glanced at by those eyes that were bigger than human eyes, they could not help but want to kneel down and submit. Gulp. So powerful, definitely more powerful than Drake. Demon Dragon Tanny choked in shock. Looking at the wound that was about to cut the world in half, he was sure that if he was struck, he would be split into several pieces like paper. Let's test him again. With a fierce glint in his eyes, Demon Dragon Tanny made a shocking move. He shot into the sky like a rocket and flew above Dustless' perfect form Ken Susanoo's head. After circling a few times, he decisively sneak-attacked perfect form Ken Susanoo's back. A giant like you shouldn't be good at moving. As long as I attack your back, I think even if you have the power to destroy the world, you won't be able to do anything to me. The huge wings flapped, fanning out a violent hurricane. Demon King Danny fell like a meteor with a loud rumble. He opened his mouth and attacked Dustless's back. It seemed like he was planning to use his mouth full of fangs to crush perfect form Ken Susanoo. It's a good idea, but it's really childish. Dustless turned his head and glanced at Demon Dragon Tanny who was above him. He could see the excitement in his dragon eyes. Perhaps he had fallen into his dream of defeating him. Still not breaking? In the blink of an eye, Demon Dragon Tanny approached perfect form Ken Susanoo's back. He used all his strength to bite perfect form Ken Susanoo. Crack crack crack. A crisp cracking sound suddenly came. Everyone thought that Dustless' perfect form Ken Susanoo had collapsed. Looking at the source, the result was shocking. The fangs in Demon Dragon Tanny's mouth were all shattered like powder. Not bad. It's still too difficult to tear apart Ken Susanoo's complete body. Let's stop here. Two thick arms suddenly appeared on the shoulders of the perfect form Ken Susanoo. While the Demon Dragon Tanny was grimacing in pain, the arms grabbed the legendary dragon like catching a rabbit. Ao 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 ao. Feeling that his neck was being grabbed by a giant hand, the demonic dragon Tanny struggled with all his might. He shook his body and opened his mouth wide to spray high-density flames onto the complete Ken Susanoo. However, nothing happened. Cough cough. That, hee hee. Lord Dustless, please forgive me for offending you. Everyone thought that demonic dragon Tanny would fight Dustless until one of them died in battle. Who would have thought that this majestic and domineering dragon would actually apologize with a flattering smile? This made everyone's jaws drop, especially Ito Ichij, who thought to himself, where is this dragon's integrity? You're a legendary dragon, so you have to pay attention to your image. You're a dragon, so don't ruin your whole race. Dustless looked down at the smiling demonic dragon Tanny. His cold face flashed with some warmth, and the perfect form Ken Susanoo loosened his grip and let him go. Riaz, this boring farce should be over now. He turned his head and revealed half of his face. The power of the Tensigan was boundless, as if it could see through the world. Riaz and Asashel, who were immersed in the darkness, also appeared in front of him. Cough cough, I'm sorry everyone. This sudden accident was actually a test from my brother. Riaz said helplessly and said awkwardly, that dragon's name is Tani. He was invited by my brother to train you all. Please don't mind. That was really a shock. Ito Ichij collapsed on the ground, and everyone felt that the mountain on their bodies disappeared. I don't mind, but I'm afraid that they can't take it. After all, a dragon is too much for them. Dustless shrugged and said indifferently. He did not organize Riaz's training, although he felt that it was very boring. This method of improving strength was also very slow, and in Dustless's view, there was no future. Long time no see, Tani. The red dragon emperor's gauntlet glowed with emerald light, and Drake's hoarse voice entered everyone's ears. Long time no see, de Drake. Demonic dragon Tani replied in a nervous tone. At the same time, he peeked at Dustless from the corner of his eyes, afraid that Dustless would change his mind and tear him apart alive. He still could not control his body well. The perfect form Ken Susanoo was too much of a deterrent. It was the first time he met someone of this level who was so powerful that he could easily kill him. Don't mind it. Dustless glanced at demonic dragon Tani and said casually. He did not have any ill feelings towards this funny dragon, although he was a little smart. Everyone, let's return to the Gimli family's territory first. Mother and brother have prepared a banquet to welcome you. Consider it an apology for this rash action. Riaz smiled elegantly. Her bell-like laughter was very pleasing to the ears. Speaking of which, why did I feel so many powerful auras just now? Are the gods of other mythological systems here? I'm really looking forward to the gods of this world. Dustless muttered to himself and looked at Riaz expectantly. I'm not sure about that. Riaz shook her head blankly. She had not returned home yet. How is this possible? This place is hundreds of kilometers away from the Gimli family's territory. How did he know the situation there? Did he rely on his own senses? Gulifia's heart was in turmoil, and she could not calm down. Her beautiful eyes were filled with shock as she looked at Dustless in disbelief. Her heart was about to jump out of her chest. Chapter 1349. Due to her excessive shock, Gulifia's chest heaved violently. Her heart was filled with shock. She had only just received news about Sazax, but Dustless had received it at the same time. He had sensed it with his own strength. What kind of monster is this guy? Gulifia bit her lip, her lips trembling slightly. There's going to be a big banquet in a few days, and all of you will be attending. I heard that the younger generation of demons will be there. Of course, there will also be an important guest, an old man from Northern Europe, Asashel interjected. So it's someone from another mythological system, Dustless mumbled to himself. There seem to be many mythological systems in this world. Should I drag that old man called Odin down from his position as the main god and replace him with me? Dustless lowered his head in thought. It seemed that he was hesitating whether to kill Odin or not. Shut up. Don't say things like that. Gulifia scolded with a straight face. She had even forgotten about their relationship as master and servant. Even jokes should stop before going too far. This guy really is lawless. Asashel lamented in his heart. He did not doubt Dustless's strength. If this guy was determined to snatch Odin's position, then no one would be able to stop him. At this moment, Dustless suddenly looked up with a frown. What's wrong? Gulifia asked. She was already on her way to the Jamanli family's magic circle. It's nothing. I just sensed a familiar aura. Don't worry about it. Dustless shook his head as he looked at Kitten thoughtfully. A rare look of fear flashed across her naturally dazed face. Looks like it really is her sister. Dustless mumbled. He had met Black Song of Taching once before and was somewhat familiar with her. He still remembered her scent. All in all, our mission in the underworld this time is to train. I hope you can do your best. Riaz's gaze swept past Junai and the others as she pointed at a satchel. This guy will be the consultant of the Supernatural Research Department from now on. A satchel was like a black hole, instantly attracting everyone's attention, including Dustless. Call me Sir Asashel. Asashel grumbled to Riaz. How rude was it to call his teacher that guy? This guy looks young on the surface, so he's probably an old antique. Moreover, he looks frivolous on the surface, and his attitude is no different from that of a brat. In reality, he's a very serious person. Dustless nodded to himself. To a certain extent, Athashel was indeed suitable to be a consultant for the Supernatural Research Lab. Everyone is done. Please leave with me. Gulifia pointed at the magic formation behind her and gestured elegantly. Dustless's killing spree had already been forgotten. He was just an ordinary person, and she treated him as an equal. Evening, at the dinner of the Jimenez family. Dustless was familiar with Riaz's parents, but when Riaz's mother saw Dustless, the seductive way she winked at him was too much for Dustless to bear. Tsk tisk, it's just a Logia devil fruit, and this woman is already dead set on me. Dustless was filled with disdain. A devil fruit was too easy to bribe. He still had a lot of them in his system. I'll give one to Riaz later. Glancing at Riaz, Dustless made up his mind. He had even chosen the type of devil fruit. The dinner ended happily, and when it was time to rest in the middle of the night, before Dustless took the initiative to find Riaz's mother, Venelana, she impatiently came to find Dustless to make a baby. In the dark room, Venelana's moans that sounded like she was in pain and pleasure could be heard from time to time. It made one want to commit a crime, and one could not help but imagine in a direction that was not suitable for children. I've already prepared everything that needs to be prepared. Venelana smiled and pinched Dustless's face. Following her lead, she looked at the table. A lot of sex toys had already been prepared. She had not seen Dustless for a while, and she wanted to go all out tonight. Since you're here, I won't hold back. Dustless did not have the word restraint in his mind. A person should be free and easy. He was like a hungry wolf, fiercely pouncing on Venelana. And Venelana fully cooperated with Dustless. For his requests, no matter how perverted they were, Venelana did not reject them. She accepted them all and satisfied Dustless's various strange tastes. How crazy does this woman want strength? She's probably willing to sell her soul. Wuchen couldn't help but be speechless. He looked at Venelana, who was sleeping soundly. Then, he walked to the balcony alone in his pajamas and stretched himself lazily. However, he found that a pair of eyes with bad intentions was quietly looking at him. You've got guts. Have you forgotten the lesson I taught you before? Now you dare to come to me. Don't think that I'm always in a good mood. Maybe when I'm not in a good mood, I'll kill you immediately. Dustless said coldly as he focused his gaze on the black shadow sitting on the balcony pillar. Dustless, with his excellent eyesight, saw the person clearly. It was a tall woman, dressed very skimpily, and her entire body was filled with fatal attraction. That's why I chose you to come here after doing that kind of thing just now. How about it? You're in a good mood now, aren't you? Chapter 1350. The devil in front of him was very surprised after hearing such a situation. Then, he could clearly feel the green flames emitting from his body. At that moment, he was in disbelief. He looked at Dustless and tried to guess the identity of this Dustless. However, Wuchen didn't answer the person in front of him. He didn't answer the question and dilemma in his heart. After Dustless dealt with this group of devils, he heard a devil who was watching from the sidelines say, "Don't worry, Dustless is going to be killed soon. This is only the first batch of demons. There will be other demons who will continue to find this place. This time, we can help you deal with a portion of them. But next time, we won't be able to help. We have received a clear order." Dustless nodded. He knew that the demons who gathered in the past few days were only the first to receive the news. Then, they were also the first ones who couldn't hold themselves back and wanted to snatch the credit. The demons who killed him weren't that strong in terms of strength, and the stronger ones were probably still on their way here. When the time came, it would only get more and more troublesome, and there would be more and more crises. When the time came, there might be a steady stream of demons appearing in front of him. But he felt that as long as he was mentally prepared, there wouldn't be too much of a problem, even though it was very likely that there would be too many powerful demons appearing. However, Dustless wasn't afraid at all. He said directly, "Don't worry, I can handle it. Go back and tell your master that when I grow up completely, it's about time for me to fulfill my mission. Tell your master to prepare in advance." Dustless's words were a little arrogant because it would be a bold situation to challenge the deity warden directly after growing up because the strength of the deity warden hadn't been accurately measured yet. Logically speaking, it should be done one at a time. After understanding the strength of the deity warden steadily, it would be more reliable to launch an attack. In this way, there wouldn't be any accidents and it would be more reassuring. However, Dustless's message was that he would challenge them as soon as he matured. Dustless wasn't sure if those first-ranked demons would be like what he said, but he really intended to do so. Because when he felt that his strength was about the same, he could boldly challenge the demon god. There was no need for him to gain experience and fight steadily. He wasn't originally from this world, but he accidentally came to this world. Therefore, he had to quickly do what he needed to do and then leave. Dustless reckoned that if he came here with such a body, then what he should do was to get rid of the demon god. After dealing with the demon god, the demon realm might be in chaos. At that time, Zhao Hai's mission would be to destroy the entire demon realm. However, Dustless felt that after getting rid of the demon god, the subsequent matters wouldn't have much to do with him. It was likely that he would have found the space-time tunnel by then and be able to leave. But for now, these matters didn't have much to do with him. After all, he was still in the process of maturing, so he still needed to grow and have a certain foundation. In this way, he would be in a better position to negotiate. Dustless thought about it again. After thinking about all this, he went to rest. He wanted to recover his consumed strength as much as possible and prepare for tomorrow's battle. The next day, after dawn, Dustless looked at the mess in his room and sighed. However, Dustless calculated the time. It was almost time for him to leave the city. After all, there were other exorcists in the city taking turns to take their turns. This way, the peace of this city could be maintained. After that, Dustless packed up and set off with his team. During this process, he told them the truth. He said that he encountered a problem and that he might be in a very serious situation during this period of time. That is, he might be wanted by the demon realm. There would be a lot of demons attacking him along the way. When the others heard this, they were also a little surprised, but they quickly reacted and directly said, "That's right. That's right. That's right. It's okay. No matter what happened, Dustless, we will always support you and help you. We won't let you fall into danger. After all, we have been standing side by side for so long, so our relationship should be quite deep. I don't think there's a problem." After hearing such words, Dustless was naturally very touched and nodded solemnly. He really felt that if it was possible, he should treat them a little better in this last situation. This way, it could be regarded as repaying their care for him. When the last few people were on the road, they were directly intercepted by demons. Dustless specially counted the number of demons at this moment and estimated the level of those demons. Dustless felt that for the exorcists present, it was not a serious matter. Therefore, the few of them quickly cooperated and attacked those devils swiftly and neatly. There were a lot of devils, and it seemed like they had planned this beforehand. They were waiting for everyone to appear here so that they could attack them directly. Under such a situation, 3 demons appeared on Dustless's side. Moreover, these 3 demons seemed to have different strengths. These 3 demons should have a certain degree of tacit understanding and cooperation for a long time. They took turns to attack. When Dustless also launched an attack, they also quickly responded to a certain degree. It could be said that their cooperation was very complete, making Dustless feel a little difficult to attack. Dustless held the Tang saber in his hand, thinking about the flaws of these individuals. He also paid attention to the situation of the people around him. Chapter 1351. The sudden intruder was dressed in revealing clothing. A pair of heavy meatballs were half exposed, provoking people's most primitive desires. The girl's charming eyes were like silk, brimming with charm. Touching He Gu. I advise you to give up on the unrealistic idea of taking away your sister. Dustless drank the red wine in the goblet in one gulp. He indifferently refused. If you want to take away Kitten, you must first have the resolve to kill me. Dustless's words made his position clear, causing Touching He Gu to frown. She is not related to you in any way. Why do you care so much about her? Touching He Gu's beautiful eyes were overflowing with color. She really did not understand Dustless's scheme. She also did not think that Dustless was scheming about Kitten. This was completely nonsense. Kitten did not have anything that was worthy of Dustless's attention. She is my fiancé's family. Dustless's eyes were filled with color. His confidence was obviously lacking. In other words, we sisters have no hope of reuniting in this lifetime? Her eyes were covered with a faint layer of water. Touching He Gu's eyes dimmed a lot, and her tone also carried a touch of desolation. Everyone's position is different. Some things cannot be changed. Dustless shrugged and said helplessly. However, his eyes were jumping with a sly look. Actually, if you sisters want to reunite, it is very simple. It all depends on your will. Dustless's words woke her up. Touching He Gu was like a chick that fell into the water. She quickly grabbed onto Dustless's arm. Your little hand is so smooth. Touching He Gu was stunned. She did not expect Dustless's hand to be as smooth as silk. His skin was unbelievably delicate. She could not help but rub it a few more times. This female wolf is really too much. Dustless's mouth twitched. It was always him who took advantage of others. When did he suffer a loss? He. A series of light laughter resounded in his ears. Touching He Gu's eyes that could make one commit a crime caused one's nerves to be in a mess. She really is a demon. Dustless secretly nodded his head. Even though his heart was as calm as an ancient well, there were faint ripples in it. Ordinary people might have already lost themselves in the gentleness of Black Song in Pagoda City, leading a drunken life in the countryside. As long as we resolve our relationship as sisters, I will be yours from now on. Her fragrant sandalwood mouth gently opened, and Deshang Hage exhaled a fragrant scent. She, who was already extraordinarily charming, purposely revealed her mature figure, making people's blood boil. They couldn't help but want to agree to her conditions. Taking a glance at Vaini Lana, who was sleeping soundly, Touching Hage chuckled and said, I can do what she did with you too. Actually, it's very simple. You still have the initiative. Dustless was not tempted. He passed the ball to Deshang He Gu, indicating for him to settle it himself. He just explained the method. It's actually very simple. As long as you become Riaz's dependent like Kitten, all these problems will be solved. There won't be any confrontational relationship between the two of you due to different factions, and you can be together every day. Dustless chuckled and leaned against the wall peacefully. He looked calm and composed, and he was not afraid of her rejection at all. You want to poach Wally? Narrowing her eyes, Deshang Hage suddenly understood. If she jumped ship to Riaz's side, there was indeed no one who could stop her from meeting Kitten. Poach. Aren't these words too unpleasant to hear? I'm guiding you onto the right path. Do you think that I'm not as good as that arrogant lizard kid? When Dustless mentioned himself, he was in high spirits, but when he talked about Wally, his face was full of sneers. He mercilessly retaliated, his vision is too narrow. Do you think he can defeat the Great Red with his strength? That kid always gives me the feeling that he hasn't even graduated from kindergarten. You're insulting my boss in front of me. Is this really okay? Deshang asked speechlessly. Dustless really did not treat her as an outsider at all. He completely treated her as one of his own. This is the truth. Dustless reiterated, not to mention that Lizard Kid is my enemy. Every man for himself. After I kill Wally in the future, you'll still have to find another place. It's not hard to find a suitable home now. Of course, if you want to think of it as poaching Wally, that's fine too. Dustless stared at Deshang little face and said, "Give me time to think about it." Deshang lowered her head and fell into a dilemma. She was tempted by Dustless's suggestion. Listening to Dustless's tone, she smelled a trace of cold murderous intent. If Wally really died in the future, she had to find a suitable home. Dustless in front of her was indeed not bad. He completely defeated White Dragon King Wally in all aspects. Give me 7 days to think about it. Taking a deep breath, Deshang chose to leave for a while. Her mind was in a mess right now. She could not think steadily and was unable to concentrate. No problem. Dustless slightly nodded and immediately continued, "Remember, if you stand on Wally's side, you can forget about seeing Kitten in your life. You should know my strength. It's easy to stop the two of you from seeing each other." You. Hearing this, Deshang hard-won good impression of Dustless instantly disappeared. This guy relied on his strength to be so despicable and ruthless. He did not have the style of a strong person at all. Don't stare at me like you want to eat me. You should understand that this is the territory of the Gimli family. I can completely treat you as an enemy and take you as my own. You're still a virgin right now. You have to thank me for my kindness. Dustless proudly revealed an expression that said, "You have to thank me." So shameless. Deshang was defeated and left. She was really afraid that Dustless would force her to stay. Chapter 1352. After witnessing Black Song of Tower City turn into a black wind and disappear, Silver returned to hug Veiny Lana and fell asleep peacefully. The next morning, the sky was turning bright. Veiny Lana, who woke up first, took a deep look at Dustless before leaving quietly. As for when Dustless attacked, it was already late in the morning. Time was tight, and the dependents of the Supernatural Research Department were all undergoing intense training. Only Dustless was walking around in boredom. He had nothing to train, and no one could train him. Bored, he strolled around the Gemengli family's territory alone to kill time. It seems to be the same as the human world. There's nothing special about it. On the streets, Dustless strolled around, looking left and right. He realized that it was the same as human society. There were all kinds of supermarkets and peddlers selling vegetables and fruits. The only difference between them and humans was that they were all demons with black wings. Thud thud thud. Suddenly, there were messy footsteps in front of him. Dustless raised his head instinctively. Bang bang bang. A ferocious force came from the front, and Dustless, who was caught off guard, was sent flying. Ouch, F***ck. Dustless sat on the ground and touched his red forehead. It hurt a little. Just as he was about to teach the bastard who attacked him a lesson, a delicate arm suddenly grabbed him. "I'm sorry, are you all right?" A pleasant and crisp voice asked. It seemed to be the person who bumped into him. "I'm fine." Dustless complained with a dark expression. He was knocked down by someone for no reason due to his carelessness. How could he endure this? Unable to restrain his anger, he raised his head and roared angrily out of humiliation, "How dare you, you are..." The words at the tip of Wu Chen's tongue stopped abruptly. What entered his sight was a silver-haired girl with an extraordinary appearance. Her watery eyes were moving nimbly, and her face was full of apologies. Silver hair drooped down on Dustless's head. The 3,000 strands of willow hair were filled with an elegant fragrance. It was very pleasant to the smell. The young girl's skin was fair and beautiful, her facial features were as beautiful as the moon, her bright eyes sparkled like stars, and her delicate red lips were like a blooming poppy flower, emitting a magical power. The young girl's face was filled with nervousness as she nervously looked at Dustless. After a while, she let out a sigh of relief. It seems like he's not injured. Otherwise, there would be another expense. It smells really good. Because the two of them were too close, Dustless could still clearly smell the faint fragrance of the girl's body. It lingered in his mouth and nose for a long time. Why does it feel so familiar? Staring at the nervous girl who grabbed him, Dustless felt a sense of familiarity. She was somewhat similar to a certain figure in his mind, so he asked tentatively, "Lothvias?" The girl was obviously stunned. She looked at Dustless in surprise and asked, "How do you know me?" It really is her. Dustless's eyes flashed. He did not expect to meet this Valkyrie here. Lothvias is Odin's bodyguard, which indirectly means that the main god called Odin is also here. Since he is so desperate to form an alliance, maybe there is a big problem with their mythological system. That god called Loki seems to be Odin's sworn enemy. Staring at Lothvias' perfect face, Dustless guessed in his heart. Ahem, Lothvias coughed twice, then blinked at Dustless and asked, "Young man, have you seen an old man with white hair and a white beard?" "Old man?" "Yes." Without even thinking, Wu Che replied without hesitation, "Are you talking about the old man who stares at women's buttocks? I saw him just now, on this road. He is very wretched. Big sister, you have to stay away from him." Lothvias' mouth twitched, and her face turned red. She did not doubt Dustless's words, because their main god Odin's personality was so perverted. The gods of the Norse mythological system are going to faint from crying. Lothvias rubbed her temples tiredly and said speechlessly. Odin was also a headache. He was more like a lecherous old man than a main god. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Lothvias, please take care of me in the future. Lothvias' face bloomed with a gentle smile as she extended her hand and said very politely. Dustless nodded slightly and also extended his right arm to shake her hand. He smiled and said, "My name is Dustless, the husband of the Gimli family. I am very familiar with this place. Why don't I take you to that wretched old man?" "Wretched old man?" Hearing this, Lothvias smiled with a lot of black lines hanging on her forehead. She did not know whether to laugh or cry. Dustless took the initiative to volunteer. Anyway, he was bored now, so it was better to find a beautiful woman to relieve his boredom. It was much better than facing a group of men. Gimli family? What does he have to do with magic Sazex? Hearing this, Lothvias' eyes flashed and she guessed the identity of Dustless. Then she frowned slightly, feeling that the name Dustless was familiar. Sazex's sister Riaz, she is my future wife. Seeing through Lothvias' confusion, Dustless said his identity with a smile. You want to find that wretched old man? I'll take you there. Slightly closing his eyes, Dustless's observation hockey quietly spread, and he concentrated on searching for the traces of Odin. After a while, he opened his deep eyes with a confident look on his face. Apparently, he noticed the existence of Odin. He simply took Lothvias' small hand. The latter's face suddenly turned red, and she gave up after struggling for a while. Her first impression of Dustless was also good, and he did not seem like the kind of person who had a dirty mind. Chapter 1353. The reason why Lothvia did not resist Dustless was not only because of his good influence, but also because of the Gimli family. After all, they were here to form an alliance, so naturally, they would not ruin their relationship with Dustless. Speaking of which, aren't you curious about my identity? Aren't you afraid that You raped me? Dustless slyly rolled his eyes and teased, if that's the case, I'll definitely accept it with pride. You Latvia's white face instantly turned red, and her angry look was very cute and playful. Miss Latvia, you should be the bodyguard of the Norse god Odin, right? The real purpose of coming to the underworld this time is to form an alliance with the fallen angels, the demons, and the angels. Calamity should be a threat to the Norse mythological system, right? Dustless spoke frankly. The existence of calamity was a threat to the entire world. Latvia's white chin lightly nodded, and then she could not help but ask curiously, since you know my identity, you still dare to say that? What you said just now might ruin our relationship. Is that a serious crime? After saying that, Latvia looked at Dustless with her hands on her hips, like a tiger eyeing its prey. Serious crime? What does that have to do with me? Dustless curled his lips to express his confusion, and then said bluntly, destroy it if you want. What does it have to do with me? Even if this world is destroyed by calamity, it has nothing to do with me. Dustless's expression was normal, and he really felt that this group of people was boring enough. They could live their own lives, and the grand script of the Savior was really not suitable for him. Even if the world is destroyed, you will be finished. Latvia said seriously, looking at Dustless with a hopeless expression. That's simple. Upon hearing this, Dustless' soul smiled nonchalantly and said, I will get rid of them before they destroy me. Dustless had never thought of becoming enemies with the group of misfortune, but if they didn't know what was good for them, such as White Dragon Emperor Wally, who took the initiative to come to him, Dustless wouldn't be polite. Dustless would generously send his enemies to their deaths if they took the initiative to send them to their deaths. By the way, are you sure you can find Sir Odin? Rose Vies questioned. She felt that Dustless's sloppy behavior was a little strange. Odin hasn't been found yet, but there is a group of people who came to trouble us. Observation hockey expanded, and Dustless found a large number of killers ambushed on both sides of the street. Hearing this, Lothwise frowned slightly and looked at Dustless in confusion. Just as she was about to ask him what happened, countless black shadows suddenly attacked and surrounded the two of them. You sure have a lot of enemies, Lothwise said with a frown, her tone turning cold. I think you are mistaken. This group of people is coming for you. Dustless glanced at Lothwise gently and said softly, as long as you die, I don't think the alliance of several forces will be so smooth, and there is even a possibility that they will part ways. Am I that important? I'm just an insignificant bodyguard. Lothwise was speechless and felt that Dustless was shirking his responsibility. Don't belittle yourself. You've been Odin's bodyguard for so many years, and your status isn't low. If you were killed for no reason, that old man Odin would definitely get angry. And this is the territory of the Gimli family. When the time comes, a battle will be unavoidable. Wuchen calmly analyzed. His analysis was well-grounded, and no one could find a reason to refute it. TSK. But this group of people who came to sneak attack me forgot a major problem. Immediately afterward, Dustless continued to add, it's okay to attack you, but they dare to attack me, they are bold. After saying that, Dustless revealed a terrifying demonic smile. Like a hunter lurking in the wilderness, his eyes shot out an oily green light that could devour people. Strange, why do I feel that this guy is familiar, but I can't remember specifically. Lothwise stomped her feet angrily, but Dustless had already launched a fatal attack. Boom boom boom. A majestic, insubstantial energy ripple erupted from Dustless's body and spread hundreds of meters away in the blink of an eye. Those who came into contact with the energy ripple all frothed at the mouth. And in the sky, a huge rift had been torn open. What is this feeling? Luasiwi's eyes were filled with panic as she looked at Dustless in disbelief. Even though the airwave wasn't deliberately released to target her, it was still oppressive. It was as though she had encountered her natural enemy, and her entire body was trembling slightly. Luasiwi even felt that with just a thought from Dustless, she would be crushed to pieces. You. Who are you? Suppressing the shock in her heart, Lothwise asked. The black-clothed people surrounding them were instantly killed, all of them frothing at the mouth and rolling their eyes. My name is Dustless, I've told you before. Dustless crossed his arms and said casually. Suddenly, he felt an unusual energy fluctuation in the sky. Is the main culprit of the sneak attack here? Quietly staring at the mysterious magic circle in the void, Dustless smelled an unusual energy fluctuation. Dustless? Oh, right, I remember now. The Dustless who killed the fallen angel Cadre and almost killed the White Dragon Emperor Wally in an instant? Lothwise rubbed her eyes and suddenly realized that she had heard the legend of Dustless's abnormal power. After hearing the rumors of Dustless's heaven-defying strength, Lothwise also became a fan of Dustless. Chapter 1354. Lusvias was extremely excited. Her eyes sparkled with starlight as she looked at Dustless with 2 stars in her eyes. This woman has changed so much. Women are indeed fickle creatures. Dustless felt uncomfortable under this inexplicable gaze. For some reason, he felt as though Lothviather was going to swallow him. He had to change the topic. I think he's the culprit who attacked us just now. Dustless looked at the distant sky. The magic circle there was clearly visible. This magic circle. I don't know much about magic, but I'm sure that the person who attacked us is definitely not ordinary. Dustless explained with great interest. Crack. 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 At the same time, the sky exploded with a crisp sound like a mirror. Countless cracks appeared in the boundless void, crisscrossing like a spider web. Buzz. 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 Majestic magic waves spread out, and the entire sky shook violently. It seemed like it could not hold on any longer. Not bad. After a few rough glances, Dustless estimated the approximate strength of the intruder. Based on the energy waves in this world, it was probably someone on the level of a god. Just not bad? Los Valles, who was beside him, smiled bitterly. Dustless was bold, but this unusual energy wave made her shudder. Her body was about to be crushed. In other words, it was like the absolute suppression of a higher life form over a lower life form. It was full of disdain. Oh. This god is obviously not a good person. He only knows how to bully the weak and fear the strong. The surface of Dustless' body emitted a faint golden luster that enveloped Los Civias. Only then did her rapid breathing stabilize. Looking closely, she was already sweating profusely, and her sweat had soaked her clothes. Due to the water, certain parts of Losvia's body could be vaguely seen by the sharp-eyed Dustless. Gulp. Dustless swallowed his saliva and secretly gave her a thumbs up. Rose Vay's figure was definitely top-notch. Sorry, I've dragged you down. At the same time, she gazed deeply at the familiar magic array. She could already vaguely guess who it was that had arrived. Do you know that idiot god? He really has no taste. Noticing Losvia's strange expression, Dustless's unrestrained words resounded throughout the world. Idiot, don't you know who that is? That's a god, a real god. The corner of Lothwise's mouth twitched. She quickly covered Dustless's mouth and pressed him into her arms. At the same time, she shouted at the magic circle in the sky, Lord Loki, this child is not sensible. Please forgive him. Bang, bang, bang. The horizon completely exploded. A rather handsome young man stood there with his hands behind his back. His expression was dark and wild, and in his eyes, everyone was like ants that couldn't even withstand a single blow. This guy, this annoying long outyan face is really annoying. Dustless's eyes flashed with anger. He then enjoyed lying in Los Valles' arms, enjoying her intoxicating body fragrance and the 2 meaty things on his head. Humph. The evil god Loki first snorted coldly and glanced at Dustless with murderous eyes. Then, he smiled. He noticed that there was not the slightest fluctuation on him, so he deliberately treated him as a pawn that wasn't worth mentioning. He's just a piece of trash. I won't bother with him, but, Loki's lips curled into a ferocious smile. He said directly, my pet is hungry. I'll have to trouble you two to fill his stomach. This time, I'll let bygones be bygones. Loki waved his hand and looked magnanimous. However, his words made Losvias feel as if she had fallen into an ice cave. Lord Loki, what you're doing is against, don't waste your breath. He's determined to kill the two of us. This will cause a rift between the two sides. When that happens, the plan to form an alliance will fail. Dustless interrupted Losvias. He looked at Loki, who was standing in the void, and a strange look flashed in his eyes. Awoo, 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 awoo. At the same time, a hysterical roar shook the sky. Violent winds and waves came at them. The surrounding buildings were destroyed, and the streets that were filled with people turned into ruins in the blink of an eye. This beast, oh, no, what's the name of this wolf? Dustless asked Losvias innocently. I say, you're not doing this on purpose, are you? That wolf's name is Fenrir. Losvias fiercely pinched Dustless's face and asked with a dark expression. Awoo, awoo, awoo. Awoo, awoo, the silver wolf roared angrily at the sky. The sky seemed to tremble as a huge ripple spread across the entire sky. It was as if even the heavens were afraid of his power. Seeing this, Dustless just smiled and replied coldly with an expressionless face, the world has changed. It's just a mere beast, and it dares to bare its teeth at people. As expected, the world is deteriorating day by day. Let's retreat quickly. The two of us together are no match for it. We must not let Loki's scheme succeed. At this point, Losvias had also given up on the idea of fighting. Fenrir was already a ferocious demon. If the evil god Loki joined in, the two of them had no chance of winning. Run? Do you think the two of us can outrun these two crazy gods? Dustless stood up and stretched. His eyes were filled with a cold light. Then what do you plan to do? Losvias, who was at a loss, sighed. Her voice was filled with despair. It's very simple. I'll use my fist to tell that beast whose fist is stronger. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.